Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Hook It podcast. But before we drop in on this episode, I want to share with you some news, and we also have a giveaway. Ooh! I am super excited to have just put out the Winter Defiance Handbook. Winter sucks, right? So let's be honest, 2020 has been unique. It's been stressful, it's been uninspiring, and you've been subject to a couple of dudes talking total waffle week on week. Throughout the year, we've been told to stay indoors, encouraged to stay away from our family and friends, and potentially lost somebody close to us. And now there's less daylight, it's cold, it's wet, and motivation sinks to an all-time low. So, I have created the Winter Defiance Handbook, and I want this handbook to help raise some winter stoke, motivate you, inspire others, and have some fun along the way. The Winter Defiance Handbook contains 250 challenges and is broken down into 7 categories to help you stay physically fit, mentally stimulated, step outside your comfort zone, and plenty of time to get cozy and just chill indoors too. There's 50 riding challenges, 50 fitness challenges, 50 random challenges, 25 podcast recommendations, 25 book recommendations, 25 must-watch mountain bike and action sports films, and 25 iconic movies. Each week, we're also going to be doing a giveaway that relates to the challenges over on the podcast Instagram at the Hook It Podcast. We've got some special guests stepping in too to put out some bonus challenges throughout the winter months. And of course, the handbook is totally free to download. You can get it over on the Hook It Products website, hktproducts.co.uk, and you'll see a link at the top of the page to get yours. Then just download it and put it somewhere in the house where you can't avoid it. Most importantly though, I want this to be immersive. I want it to be engaging. I want to see and hear your progress. So you can use our hashtag HookItHKT Winter Defiance and tag at the Hook It Podcast when you're out doing some of these challenges, and let's share this journey together. So hookitproducts.co.uk, and that's where you can get your download. It's free. You just have to put it through. It's pretty simple to do, guys. If you have any issues, just hit me up and I'll be able to sort it out for you. Giveaway. Would you like to win yourself a Works HydroShot pressure washer? I've been using one of these things for a year or so now, and it's been a lifesaver. No more dragging dirt through the house. No more wheeling a dirty bike along the laminate flooring. No more stopping off at a jet wash and using something that is way too powerful and blows your bearings to pieces. After all, dirty things aren't good. Like, when is something described as dirty and it's good? To be in with a chance of winning a Works HydroShot, all you have to do is post a photo of your dirtiest bike on Instagram or Facebook. Then just tag at the Hook It Podcast, at OW_23 and at Works UK, whilst also using the Clean My Bike Works hashtag. Sounds like a lot, but it's pretty simple. Get a picture of the dirtiest your bike's ever been, old one, new one, whatever. It could be a photo of a recent muddy ride, an old muddy ride, or maybe you just want to own up to the fact that you haven't cleaned your bike for months and just post a photo. Just tag those 3 accounts, the Hook It Podcast, OW_23 and Works UK, and use that hashtag Clean My Bike Works. If you don't want to win it and you just want to make a purchase and buy it, the HydroShot is available to buy from select retailers only, which include Amazon, Argos, Halfords, Toolstation, and their official eBay store, or check out their new website, works-uk.com. Last but not least, we are brought to you by the underwear gods, Saxx Underwear. Saxx just dropped the Fall 20 range, which is now available to buy online through your local Saxx stockist. Is it time to start thinking about Christmas gift ideas? It probably is, unfortunately. Saxx makes the ultimate gift for any man. The patented ballpark pouch technology will have the special man in your life walking around like he's just won the lottery. The Testicle Comfort Lottery. The TCL offers the ultimate TLC. Saxx start at just £20 and available from all good outdoor bike, skate, snow and fashion retailers, or head to saxxunderwear.com. because they now ship globally. All right, folks, when this episode goes live on Saturday the 10th of October, it will be World Mental Health Day. And I know not everybody will make it to the very end of this episode, which is where I wanted to mention this. But I thought I'd just quickly say that if you are struggling with mental health and you really don't have anybody to turn to, I'm available for a chat. I often get really kind messages on the DMs, but there's been a few times that I've had some sort of worrying messages. And at the moment, like many people, I'm working at home. I do have a little bit more spare time. And if you just want to sit and chat on Skype or FaceTime or whatever, then, if you're really struggling, shoot me a message and we'll link it up. I'd also like to think that the majority of people who listen to this episode will post a similar message either on your social media or just reach out to a friend you might think could be struggling. A chat can go like a hell of a long way and it can make a real change in someone's life. So I urge you to do that. Today's guest is an interesting one. I met Russ at the Freedom Ride event that we organised after lockdown, or before going back into another lockdown, and I instantly knew he'd make a great podcast guest. He's one of the founders of Upgrade Bikes and was around at the start of DMR being formed. He's led a really interesting life, from being a professional surf photographer all the way through to now working with veterans who suffer with PTSD. He's also writing a book which documents the impact mountain biking can have on promoting positive mental health, which we also obviously discuss in this episode. So yeah, super varied episode. I hope you guys really enjoy this one. Enough of me waffling on. If you do enjoy this episode, please, it makes a huge difference, leave a review on iTunes or share it with your friends. And that's it. Enjoy the episode. One love.
Riders ready? Watch the good.
I got big boy pants on!
How much more black can you spit?
The Hook It Podcast.
A real brief introduction, and then we'll kick this bad boy off.
Oh.
Bit of a, I'd say not a random guess as such, but we met sort of briefly at the Freedom Ride, which we organised as we were sort of coming out of lockdown. Well, we thought we were coming out of lockdown. It turns out they just let the brakes off for a week or two, and then we've gone pretty much straight back in. But either way, we met briefly. We had a good chat. You were doing some interesting work with a project which we're hopefully going to talk about, and you can just tell straight away, dude, who'd make a good guest on this thing, who's got a good backstory, and who's just interesting to sit and chat to. So I'm stoked to have you on here, man. And I know you've been listening to the podcast a little bit yourself. So Russell, officially, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
No,
Cheers.
mate.
I was stoked to be here.
No, man,
Yeah.
thank you. And it's funny because we spoke about it almost straight away, right? Because we had like a bit of a chat at Freedom Ride. Your man, is it Adrian from DMR? What was his name?
Rory.
Rory.
Was there?
Yeah, Rory,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Rory introduced us briefly. We stood and had a bit of a chat. And again, I was like, dude, like, you've got to come on the podcast and we'll just talk about some of this stuff you're doing. And here we are. So, yeah. And it's
Stoked.
a timely episode as well, I think, because when this comes out, it'll be Saturday the 10th, which is World Mental Health Day. So, some of that sort of stuff that we can cover as well as we navigate through this. But yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you taking the time out, and it's good to have you on here.
Oh, it's good to hear. It's classic meeting. Met so many cool people at Freedom Ride. It was so totally unexpected.
Tell me about it. It was unexpected to have actually pulled that thing off as well. To be honest with you, it was.
I've listened to I kind of went back through, started listening to podcasts lockdown, and then when I met you, and I've kind of listened to all the free, like the lockdown companions, and just I've been out just because I'm still furloughed. It's just weird. I've just been out walking a dog, listening to a different episode, and listening to a couple of ones that you recommended, and it's weird going back and listening to the beginning of lockdown.
Yeah.
Like, say you and Ollie talking about what's going on, what's happening, and like your feelings of, I think everyone's feelings of what was strange times. And then I remember, I think it was like 3-4 weeks in, that Ollie said that his great granddad or something had passed.
Yeah.
And it kind of all of a sudden hit it had become very, very real and very close to family. And it was, and then listening, you know, I'm sure it's affected loads of people, isn't it? You know,
Yeah, totally.
Thousands. And then going all the way through to like getting the Freedom Ride done, and then post Freedom Ride, and it's just been like listening to this epic journey of kind of strange times. Really good.
It's strange in more ways than one, though, isn't it? For me, it's strange that we're here now, if that makes sense. Like, this year has gone so fast. I mean, it feels as if, you know, I can't remember when we did the first episode of that lockdown companion. It might have been sort of February or March, I think. And you know, from then to now, literally on it, like, it feels like 2 months maximum. But it's been, you know, pretty much a whole year of being, for many people as well, sort of stuck indoors, and all the pressures that come with that, and, you know, financial issues, and like everything that's come along with it. And a few people obviously say the same thing as well, of, oh, I'm just going back and listening to episode 1 again, and I'm like, God, it feels so long ago. And I hit play on YouTube almost by accident, actually, of one of the first ones that I put up as a video, and I was like, oh my God, you know, even when you can see yourself looking totally different, like, to me, I was like, oh my God, I look so different. I feel like it's a totally different guy back then. There's been a lot of changes and stuff since, you know, since those first episodes to where we are now, you know. I mean, yeah, crazy time, man. But it's
bizarre.
It has been totally bizarre, but it's been as well, I feel like that whole lockdown thing, I know Ollie and I joked about it on the last Where's Ollie, but it did feel at times that, you know, some of the messages, man, I was getting from people, you know, stuff that I guess I don't share with other people, but, you know, people saying how they are actually really struggling. You know, maybe they've lost a job, or they've lost a family member, and, you know, saying that, you know, this lockdown companion of, you know, me and my mate Ollie just sat talking shit and just getting the odd guest on, you know, it really did help people. And it I'm really proud of that, if I'm honest with you. I'm really proud of the work.
Definitely. Like, personally, for me, I mean, listening to going for a walk, there's days where I've really felt quite, you know, not a bit down, you know, like, really, and you kind of like, oh, what's happening, like with work. It's like, I'm kind of building, and you know, at the moment, and there's days when thinking, oh, what's going to happen? The longer it goes on, am I going to have a job to go to? So, but then you go for a walk. I come on, dog, let's go for a walk, and you put the headphones in, put on Lockdown Companion, and within 2 minutes you're laughing, and like, by the end of it, and you learn stuff, and then you kind of, like, you go and listen to another podcast, and then you learn stuff about, actually, you know, it's put a bit of perspective on things, and I don't know, I think for me, podcasts, like, after I spoke to you and you said that podcasts are the universe, they're like a free university.
I firmly believe that, though. I firmly believe that.
I've learned so much about other people, about myself, about, you know, and it's amazing. And literally, I never had, this 6 months has been a real discovery of things like podcasts and what you can learn. Whereas before, it would be I'd read a book, or I'd watch some YouTube, or I you know. But podcast, I've learned so much.
I feel like that's one of the major benefits, if anything, has come out of lockdown, is that it's given people time. You know, it's all for many people. It's been, if you are lucky enough, you know, to have an employee that can furlough you, and that you're still gonna, or, you know, in some ways maybe make that, you know, salary up as well. It's giving you almost however many months of. It's hard to say holiday, because you don't want to really, like, you know, glamorize what we're going through, but it feels like, you know, here you go, here's 3 months or whatever it could be, and just have some time to yourself. I mean, what an amazing opportunity that can be as well for many people. And you know, personally, I didn't furlough myself through the business or anything. We've sort of just carried on. You know, been super lucky, I think, to work in the bike industry, because it has been thriving. It's been really, really good. But, you know, a lot of people haven't had that experience. So I think, like, you know, it's about taking that time and doing something productive with it. I think that's really important. You know, a lot of people will have sat and tried to, like, complete Netflix or play video games, or, you know, and don't get me wrong, like, that's great in small doses, and there's a lot of amazing things on Netflix, and video games are probably really good for you. But I think it is important to sort of think outside the box a little bit, right?
I mean, if I went back to work and thought, well, I've had 6 months. I mean, I am probably one of the lucky ones, and I know so many people that have not stopped working, and
Yeah.
I'm not at work by choice. It's just I was told to go home and back in March, and I've not been asked to go back yet. And
God.
if it happens, it happens. If not, I've taken 6 months, and I've just jumped at every opportunity that's come my way, and I think I would hate to be in a position now where I sit down and go, well, yeah, I've done Game of Thrones again. I've done
Yeah.
I've gone through the box set of 24, and and it's but what I have done is been kind of creative, gone out, done stuff, gun riding, surf, everything,
Yeah.
and made the most of it. The most. Yeah.
So you say surfing though. So whereabouts are you based in the UK again?
Well, I'm I don't know, lucky, but I'm in Cornwall. I'm in Sennan in Cornwall, right
Beautiful.
down Land's End.
Beautiful.
So, we moved down here 15 years ago from Brighton, and then never went home. Really.
Right,
Lived in a, came down 2005, in a van with the idea of being a surf photographer. Had all the kit, and drove down in the van, stayed in a campsite. We needed to be in a campsite 20 minutes away from the beach so that our battery inverter would charge, so we could charge up the laptop. So at the end of every day, we go home to the campsite. That would charge the laptop up for the next day.
Wow.
And then I'd go down the beach, take some photos of the surf school, and earn a bit of money from the tourists. Like doing just surf school photos, and then sell them discs with 5 photos of their kids on, and then have enough money to get us through the summer.
Right.
And we lived in a campsite for about 3-4 months.
Did you?
And then got a house. Yeah, it's good fun. So it was just up at 5 every morning, go surfing in the summer, and then work all day. It was good. But
I've always been super drawn to that surf lifestyle. Just the bit of a bohemian take on life. I love the whole being barefoot, being on the beach. It's just so relaxed, and I love being around water as well. There's something that, well, in some ways I don't. I'm a little bit traumatized by water these days, but definitely a couple of years ago I would have said I absolutely love just being around the water. There is something super powerful about just being around the ocean, and all the vibes and the energy that you get from just being around it and hearing it and stuff. Hearing the power of waves. It's a beautiful thing to be around, and I think when you're not around it like me that often, I live in Sheffield. The closest beach is 2.5 hours away, give or take. So it's a real novelty to get to the ocean and to put your feet in and stuff.
I mean, we're pretty spoiled. I mean, we chose to live here because I was working in the Canary Islands years ago, back in late 90s, and I was teaching surfing out there, and I met people from here, from Sennan, and they said, "Oh, you've got to come down."
Yeah.
So I came down on the 99. It was like the eclipse, like the big eclipse you had in 99. That is on my birthday.
Okay.
I came down and I just kind of met the guys that I've been working with that come to see us, and from then I got introduced to other people, and I just kind of felt very comfortable. I could go and sit in a pub on my own, and have a van there and sit in a pub, have a pint, and then everyone kind of was like 20 years ago, they were all the local surfers, and it was kind of did it in a way where I didn't come down and be an idiot. I just kind of got to know people, and hopefully I wasn't an idiot. I got to know people and just went surfing, and I just felt so comfortable that I ended up moving down, and met my missus in the car park down there.
Did you really? What, dogging?
Yeah. No, she was. I was watching. No, she
Oh dear.
she just walked across the car park. I was sitting in my van, and I was like, "Hello," and she just had a big pair of combats on and a big baggy hat.
Right, really, yeah.
And, I was in the pub that night with a mate, and we'd had a few beers, and just kind of a bit of Dutch courage, got chatting, and it turned out that she lived a mile up the end of the road from me in Brighton.
No way.
I'd seen her before because we used to run the surf club in Brighton, and she'd come along one night, and I'd seen her before, and we sort of one thing led to another, and sort of we moved down there together in
It's crazy though, isn't
ago.
it? When you sort of almost, I wouldn't say fall into a situation, but especially with where you live, it's quite an important thing, isn't it? And if you're not happy with where you live, it can it can really dramatically sort of affect your life. I mean, I've lived in some places, not really abroad. I spent a lot of time in California, which I loved, and I've always felt that like that is home. You get a feeling, right, of like, oh, this is where I should be. I fit in, the people. This is going back, 15 years now, and I know America's changed a lot since then. But at the time, it just felt like home. And I always remember sort of coming home from the States. I think it was one of the last times that I came home because I kept having to come back and refresh visas and stuff. I was coming home just like sat on the flight just like sobbing to myself. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I leaving? Like, I'm going back to somewhere that I don't really like that much, and blah blah blah, and this and that and the other. And then I guess with traveling around, going to Australia and places, and Sweden for me as well. Like I've spent a lot of time in Sweden over the last sort of 10 years or so, and that's a place where I get to and you just have that release, and you just like, this is home. This feels like home. I could live here, no problem.
I feel like it's escape. If you go to Sweden, it's like an escape now.
Totally.
Yeah. So
totally.
If I come from, when we used to come to Cornwall on holiday, it was an escape. Go Brighton to Cornwall. It was an escape. Brighton wasn't really content. I liked it. I loved, grew up there. So, but when you get to sort of 35, you've been to all the clubs, you've been there, done that. And then our escape was the West Country. And then as soon as I moved here, I thought, oh no, I've lost my escape. Where am I going now? And weirdly enough, going back to Brighton or Sussex, just literally down the road from DMR is my escape kind of thing in this country. So
and I think for me, like, the thing with Sweden is it feels a little bit like Canada, but it's really close. It's like a couple of hours away on a plane. I love that. I like that you could drive there in 12 hours from me, and you're in a very, very, very different country with totally different sort of ethics, and just the whole vibe's just so different. I've always thought, if it wasn't for like starting this business, 6 or 7 years ago, I think I'd probably have moved to Sweden. I think, to be honest, that was sort of where I was headed, but it hasn't happened. But I've still, got aspirations to have myself a little summer home over there or stuff, because houses are really cheap in Sweden, which people won't expect. But houses are like super cheap in Sweden.
Really? I know the opposite.
It's kind of like the opposite to here. Whereas in the UK, it seems like people want to live in the countryside. And I know I'm probably going to get some people from Sweden reach out and say, don't give the secret away. But in Sweden, it's almost like the opposite. So they want to live in cities. So the countryside's really cheap. So if you and obviously it's quite a big country. There's not really a huge population, so there's a lot of space. So you can get like a really beautiful home with its own private lake and outbuildings and all that sort of stuff. Like the dream for me. For like, I'm not really throwing any figures out there, but let's say under £60,000 will get you like an insane home in Sweden. Just in the forest, which for me, as an outdoorsy sort of person, and many people listening, that's where you want to be. Leave the city to the other folk. So
that's what's happening down here. It's since this this lockdown, there's the house interest in houses have gone up.
Yeah,
and I heard like the house sales in the Highlands have gone through the roof. And it kind of like whether if people want that kind of actual lifestyle change, or they just want a kind of a bolt hole in by the coast. I mean, the first 8 weeks of lockdown down here we've got a golden sandy beach, crystal clear blue waters. Sannon's a pretty gorgeous place. I shouldn't, my mates will hate me for putting it out on a
keep it a secret.
It's not a secret at all, and it's gorgeous. And for 8 weeks, you just didn't see anyone. Walk along empty beach with a dog, and it was just like, it was amazing. And then all of a sudden, when lockdown was eased, it was just the last 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks has been mental.
I can imagine.
Mental.
I think as well, a lot of people have maybe worked in the big city, and they've been driving to and from an office every day, and obviously been made to work at home. A lot of people have probably realised, like, okay, why am I going into an office when I can just work from home. And a lot of business owners as well, I've got friends who have businesses who have done the same thing. I mean, me as well in particular, like I used to work on the road in that hotels, but we've been equally as busy, and I've been in the house for 6 months, keeping up contact through different ways, whether it's through Zoom or Skype or email, telephone calls, etc. And I think it seems like a lot of people use like London as an example. Like, why would you live in London when you can buy a house which is probably 5 or 10 times cheaper in the middle of the Peak District?
Yeah.
Where I live, same, house prices have gone crazy because people are moving out. Like, if they've been told to work at home, then why not live in a nice home?
My neighbour, I look at his house now, and he works for about an hour from us. It's called Goon Hilly, and it's a satellite station.
Right.
So the company he works for manages 2 spaceships or something up there somewhere.
No way.
So he's now literally in his spare room on a laptop managing I don't ask me what he actually does, but managing a spaceship.
Wow.
And he said they were actually in the process of moving something from the west coast of, like, say California. It was above California. They've got to move it to east coast of Oz, and they were doing all the data and all the programming.
Wow.
And so he's now doing that from his spare room, whereas he was in, I imagine, in my interpretation or imagination runs wild. It's like a NASA, screens everywhere, like, Houston, we have land over near the lizard. And but now he's on a laptop in his spare room. It's classic.
Crazy. And you're like, I'm just listening to 2 idiots talk rubbish all day. Walk the dog.
Yeah, what are you up to, Russ? I was just listening to Where's Dolly? I know. It's classic. It's all good.
But it's been such a shift, hasn't it, for so many people,
Yeah.
And again, from a business perspective, way more productive, way comfier. Don't have to pay for an office anymore, which was costing, whatever a month. I think it's been a massive shift. I think it just feels like we've sort of jumped 5 to 10 years ahead of ourselves within 3 months, and all these new systems in place. Why not work at home? Why not?
Yeah, if I could, I'm trying to create that. If I could, I would.
Totally.
It's strange times, as they keep saying.
Big time, strange times. Dude, I want to unpack some stuff. Really, I want to know more about you and the backstory and how we ended up meeting as well. Again, really sort of interesting. I guess all roads lead to freedom, ride, as they say. So tell me a little bit more about yourself, dude. Like, let's for the listeners, they've seen your name come up on the podcast, probably like, okay, all right, we'll give it a go. We don't know, with all greatest respect, like, don't know his name, which is not a bad thing at all. But that's one thing that I've always wanted to do with this podcast platform, is get it to a point where people will listen regardless of whose name comes up. Some of the best podcasts I've ever listened to in my life, you have no idea who these people are, and you're just like, I trust the host, he'll deliver me something decent. So hopefully I can do that today for the people.
No.
But dude, you've got a really interesting backstory with your involvement in DMR. And then obviously the project that you're working on, which hopefully we can talk about, and I guess also covering some of the stuff which comes along with the work that you're doing outside of your regular day job. So I want to just have you sort of just riff a little bit, dude, about sort of growing up. Where did you grow up? And let's try and make our way towards your involvement with DMR slowly but surely.
So I'm just I'm just. I shouldn't say. Let's never say that. I'm just. I grew up in Sussex, just a little place just outside Brighton in the South Downs. So always outdoors, always up on the hills when we were growing up. And I spoke my best mate, who still is my best mate, just happened to have a motocross track, which you may have heard of, Golden Barn.
Golden Barn, yeah, pretty iconic motocross track, isn't it? It's been around for donkey's years. Yeah,
75 years, I think. And I know Brendog and Bernard Kerr go down riding sometimes. And so Dan Beamish was kind of my best mate. So we were, as we grew up, went to school, always had this interest in motocross. We were always up there watching the racing. Dan's dad was he was the importer of Bmx Suzuki, well, the Suzuki like off-road bikes back in the day. Like so it was Bmx Suzuki. So whenever we were up there was always like these amazing like RM250s, 125s, you know, everything just lying around. And we would like rock up on our bikes, our push bikes, when we were about 9 or 10 with a, you know, I think we invented the mullet bike, to be honest. But ours had 24 on the front and 28 on the back, or 26 on the back, and you know, and we go up and there'd always be this big kind of pot of old handlebars, you know, and but they'd have the crossbar cut out, so all their works from the works riders, you know, factory riders. So we just, you know, grab a pair of bars and stick them on our trackers, put a bit of dowling on there to replace the bit of, you know, the crossbar, and we just head up the track with Dan. And so most of our kind of like kids growing up, we were just always just riding bikes up there. We'd go and see Dan, and then when the racing was on, we would just kind of like, to avoid paying a fiver, we'd run up over the hill. And Golden Barn, if anyone's ever been there, is just like the most amazing. It's like a natural amphitheatre. It's just a big horseshoe bowl,
right?
And you used to have like a start straight that went up, and it was just chalk, really chalky. So, I mean, God, I don't even know if hand guards were a thing back then, but it was just getting pounded with. You know, you see riders are getting pounded with chunks of chalk as they went. It's like, you know, massive, massive. But it's got a massive history. But so we all just grew up riding like bikes, and
this was Dan's family,
Right, so,
okay.
But we were kind of that. I suppose when we were growing up, I did a bit of the football thing, but I just wanted to ride bikes. I just wanted to ride push bikes. So BMX was a thing. We started BMX racing down the road, and when we weren't doing that, and when Dan wasn't racing, we just rode our bikes around the farm. And
BMX was huge, man, wasn't it? I mean, obviously it's a little bit before my time. I'm 33, so I remember being, 4 or 5, and my uncle used to take me to a load of BMX races. So that'll be sort of late 80s. But I mean, around then BMX was pumping in the UK, wasn't it? It was absolutely. Was there like a Kellogg series and all sorts of stuff going on?
Yeah, I mean, I never rode. I was just like this little BMX grommet that just, you know, like loved riding his bike. But I remember it was, I think, like it almost went from 1 minute you were riding bikes, like our mate would build our bikes up for us, and you'd be lucky what you got, like say you'd have a 24-inch wheel and a pair of bars. If you had a pair of cow horns that were like kind of, I mean, what amount, you know, 800 mil wide, they had to be like a meter. They were huge. And all of a sudden I remember we had those, and then this thing, like the word somehow got around, there's this thing called BMX, and then I personally, this is me, how I remember it, it was on chips. I don't know if you'd ever heard of chips. It's like, you know, California Highway Patrol.
It had chips had a guy in it called Bruce Pennell.
Right.
Do you remember Bruce Pennell? He was a world speedway champion, and he made his acting debut on chips. And it didn't go so good because then he ended up doing porn. Don't ask me how I know that, but my mum and, like, obviously I'm from like a bit of a speedway background, so my mum and dad were always banging on about Bruce Pennell when I was growing up. But yeah, that's he made his acting debut on chips.
Because there was a BMXer from back in the day, pretty famous. I'm not going to say his name, but the rumor was that he went into porn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I'm not going to mention their name. It might be completely wrong. But yeah, I remember like going from, you know, as soon as that we saw chips, and then bikes started appearing, and you know, I ended up with some piece of crap, but it was like the best thing ever. You know, it was like a Putsch Murray or something, and I got that, and mate Dan, he got it, his dad, you know, bought them a Mongoose, like all Super Gooses. They were like the first kind of aluminium or whatever they were, you know. And so we used to go up the track, or the motocross track. We would be about 13, I suppose, 12, 13. And I just snapped down. We were doing the jumping these tabletops, jumping these jumps, and I just ended up snapping mine in half. You know, literally the head, you know, the head tube just came off. You know, and so that was it. Save up for the next one, and then. But from that, it was kind of like we just grew up motocross and bikes were kind of hand in hand. And I used to go away with Dan and watch the motocross. And at the when they had the lunch break, it was like just these kids would just get on the track on their bikes, and it was carnage, absolute carnage. There was just these kids with motocross. They literally throw their crash helmets off, take their boots off, put their trainers on, get back on the track with their full race gear, and just be launching these
Amazing.
And the marshals, I just remember marshals kind of waving you off because the next race is ready to start, and there's all these kids, So that's.
What about your family? Were they motorsport sort of background at all?
No, not at all. Dad was he was an ex-copper, and then ended up being a harbour master at Brighton Marina, so looking after the boats and everything, or berthing master. Brother was like, myself and my brother had chalk and cheese. He was like he's an outdoor man. He'd be ferreting and shooting and pumpkin, and I was just kind of like two wheels and completely different kind of growing up. But it was, and I just remember when I was 15, 16, I just riding 14, 15, 16, just riding bikes all the time. Wanted to do, really.
Amazing. It's crazy though, isn't it, how you can have a brother and you grow up in the same house and that sort of stuff, but you just go in like totally different paths. It's crazy. But it's just literally just been exposed to like you said, that one guy, like growing up with Dan, and then that sets you on a path for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean Dan was, he's still best mate now. I don't see him much. I live down here, but whenever I go up there, it's kind of like the first. He's played a big part of my life, growing up with him and his, and his family, and just seeing the people riding and racing up there. I mean, I know you love the motocross as well, and it's. I remember growing up in 1979. It's like Graham Noyce won the world championship.
Yeah.
And on a beast of a Honda, absolute thing, and he moved in up at Golden Barn, and we used to hang around these little grommets. Be hanging around this guy's house, and he'd be walking in there. There's all this racing kit there, and then he gave us a shirt. I've still got the shirt actually. I should show you. And it's got Noyce 1 on the back, and it's just, I don't know how he got in it. I mean, I don't think I've washed it since he gave it to me. And it's tiny.
Oh really? Yeah.
It's got Honda and on the back Noyce number 1, and and it was 1979. But so I seeing these legends come up there practicing. And
but again, that was like the golden age for motocross as well. I feel like the late 70s, early 80s. Again, I wasn't really around, but looking at all the stars that sort of came from that, and just the general like vibe of motocross back then, just and especially because it was so sort of accessible for people, just drive to local track and watch some of the best guys in the world just sort of locally. A friend of mine, Jace, has got a podcast called Gypsy Tales, and he just did a really interesting episode with a guy basically talking about the same thing, about this sort of era and how sort of pumping it was for motocross, and it was almost like mainstream, whereas now it's not.
Yeah, no, I mean, you remember the World of Sport, which is on ITV.
Yeah.
And it would be like you'd get up in the morning on a Sunday or Saturday, you'd look at the what was on, like 12:30 Football Focus. Yeah, fuck that. All of that. 1:30 Heat 1, British Motocross Championship. Yeah, right, and that's half an hour. Then it'd be like snooker 2:30 till whatever 3 o'clock. Heat 2 or whatever, Moto 2. Yeah. And that was on mainstream telly, and then. It was epic.
For sure.
GPs, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But when Dan was racing, it was. I mentioned Dan because it kind of leads into DMR and how we kind of got into it. But Dan went racing. He was kind of what I suppose they call it now, factory Suzuki. He was Team Suzuki on 125s. Him and I think it was Jeremy Watley.
Oh right.
Jeremy Watley was on 250, Dan was on 125, and they were just getting ready to do the 125 to do the GPs. And Dan went to, I think it was Swindon, and had a bit of a crash, a hell of a crash. He kind of just went off a jump into two of them went together, went off a jump into a corner. They both ended up in the same rut, as I remember it. And the guy on the outside, he went over. He landed on Dan, and then Dan's inside leg took the brunt of it.
Oof.
And it was horrendous, and it nearly lost his leg from it. And he's kind of had major surgery, microsurgery to save it, and all sorts. But kind of 4 or 5 years later, he went back racing, and when four strokes started coming out, and did well again. You know, raced kind of British level, British nationals and everything. So, but it's amazing to see a comeback like that. You know, he really did well. But I think kind of I don't know, maybe Dan might agree with me, might not, but when he was younger, we used to watch Dan race, and he was winning all the time. You know, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then after his injury, it's like that little screw that he had that was loose.
Yeah.
Got kind of
tightened a little bit.
Yeah, and he kind of like, we'd go to like Canada Heights and watch the kind of the British rounds, and you'd see Dan get overtaken, and then it'd be like he'd leave it a couple of laps before he'd start catching up again.
Yeah.
And he'd be the one breaking into corners. Maybe, you know, that's how we watched it. But but he was still good. He's still good. I mean, we watched him come once from back to last. That was classic. I'll tell you, that was funny. We were on the first. You know when the 40 riders come out the gate and it's mental, and they're that north and into that first turn. And we had this mate called Wayne, and anything went wrong, we'd blame Wayne. We'd go, Wayne. And we're stuck in the corner, me, Dan's girlfriend, Wayne, and they came out, and Dan dropped his bike literally in front of us. He just went down, and we were like, Wayne. and Dan went from last. He went from last to 5th.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it was epic, absolutely epic. Right, I mean, it's just on fire, and then we just thought, that's, you know.
But you were similar ages too.
Yeah.
And what was there no like? How come you didn't ride basically?
Oh, I did poor man's mode.
Yeah. I feel you. Same actually. Like I think that's why I became so sort of obsessed with it as a kid, is because it was, even back then probably, it was still it's a rich boy sport. Yeah. I always used to say that, like, I'm from a very much a working class background, and literally like we couldn't afford to do it, so I didn't do it, and I had to, like, you know, work little bits of jobs, even, you know, being young, and really almost beg to be able to, like, not even race, just get a motocross bike, you know. And I remember the first race I did, and just having like the shittiest kit and like a shitty old bike, and you're just seeing all these, you know, rich kids basically with like the nicest stuff and the big camper vans, and it's a bit of a life lesson, like, when you really look back at it, you know, because it makes you, you know, work hard to get what you want. It wasn't just handed on a plate. So it probably similar to you, sort of growing up, you know, you probably aspire to do it, but it's just sort of out of your reach.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I had a 125 for a little bit, you know, just but that was, you know, a massive help. I used to keep up at Dan's, you know. I wasn't really any good, you know. I just kind of, I had it for a bit. We used to rag it around the track, but it was just like, yeah, you go riding, and all of a sudden you've got to buy a new tyre, or you've got to buy a new sprocket, and I just couldn't afford it. But when we were growing up, for me, motocross was like, just sit there and watch this amazing riding.
Yeah.
Run back over the hill on your bike, head to the local dirt, you know, like the track we'd made, which was our own little racetrack, and try and get past the bloke who had the biggest cow horns, you know. And that was kind of what for us was, and it was like, say, Saturday afternoon, sitting down waiting for the world of sport to start to watch the GPs, or going away, you know, when we got a bit older, you know, we went down. My mate's mini, we had no money. It was like a mini estate. We had no money, but we went to Hawkstone Park. Frome. We went to Frome.
Right.
Like the British champs down there, and we just literally put enough petrol in that all we had, and on the kind of on the downhills we were knocking out of gears to save money, and then put it into fourth to go up. I remember that. Yeah. Meatloaf playing Bow Out of Hell, and just
classic.
Had enough money to get in, kind of greasy burger, and just watch some epic motocross, and then try and get home on what little money we had, you know.
Great times, man. That sounds awesome. If only there was like camera phones and shit back then, eh? You'd have some awesome photos and stuff.
Yeah, it's like a packet of 20 fags between us all, and that was it.
Wow. So fast forward a little bit then to me about, you know, sort of DMR basically. You know, it's super interesting because you are one of the founders of DMR, right?
No, not Upgrade. So
Upgrade. Okay, perfect.
Upgrade. But what happened? So with Dan, like I mentioned, Dan, because he was the best mate. I went off to college and stuff, and I just finishing. I just kind of done my final exams, and Dan phoned me up and he said, "Russ, do you want to get back into BMX?" And I was like, well, what? Yeah, I've just done a degree in business and tourism and whatever. And,
Oh, really? Is that what you did? Okay.
Yeah, kind of had very, yeah. It's just, I enjoyed it, but yeah, and I said, well, how are we going to do that then, Dan? What's the score, And he said, well, I've just met these two guys, and they're looking for. This is how I remember it, so it might be, it's 25 years ago now, and but they said they want to get started, and they can get parts. They've been working in Taiwan designing. I think they were designing, or Damien Mason was designing for Muddy Fox.
Okay.
And they've been over there, so they had a lot of contacts, and they wanted to start something in the UK. So Dan said to me, he said, "What do you reckon?" So we sat down and said, "Well, we could have a BMX shop. Why don't we open up a BMX shop?" So on the industrial estate of Golden Barn industrial estate, so you had the motocross track, and then there's always been a farm there with industrial units. So we sat down and we said, "Oh yeah, let's do it." So we were going to we kind of opened up a little BMX shop, and we started through Damien and Matt Riley. We're going to import some BMX race frames, aluminium race frames and things like that. And ended up, Matt and Damien rented the little office at the back of us, or like behind us. So we had, it was such a small unit. It was so funny. But we had like this little unit, and we built a counter, and we built the top of a kind of mini ramp as our display with the coat. So we had BMXs along there. And then the little office behind our office, that's where DMR started.
Right.
So, and they wanted to bring some of these parts in. We all got together. I can't remember how much we put in, but 4 of us put in, I think it was a few £100. I think I borrowed some off my mum because I, just finished uni and stuff. And we started upgrade bikes. And the first thing we brought in was, I think it was these fish bones, like gyros, the Odyssey gyros for bar spinning. Like back then, it was all the good BMXs that kind of had the truck drivers and the bar spins down, and and it was called a UFO, and they were like anodized a lot bigger than the Odyssey ones. But we started bringing those in, and they kind of went well. And this is pre-internet, not social media. This was like still taking a quarter-page ad out in a magazine. Yeah. And so yeah, we kind of started that. We had one container went missing, a container full of that got stolen or went missing. We never got that, so that kind of put us back. And then we had like handlebars, we had kind of foot pegs, and
it was a mix of like freestyle BMX then, and also the race stuff.
Yeah, mostly freestyle stuff. And then myself and Dan said, let's do some race stuff. Right. So we imported these aluminium race frames. Okay. And I remember Matt and Damon had this catalogue, like it was called the Taiwanese Bicycle Parts Catalogue.
Oh man, it's still you can still get it. Oh yeah.
And it was like the Book of Dreams.
Oh yeah.
And going through it, we could put that with that. So we kind of did build up. I think we did build up a sample bike of like a freestyle bike, and then. But yeah, that kind of didn't work. We had a race frame, and we had a couple of rides like Chico Hook riding that, and another guy riding our frames. But the actual place was it was more than just a BMX shop. It was classic because I remember Damien out the back with a little Dremel with a block of plastic, literally making the pedals like the V12.
Really?
You were the little Dremel. Yeah, it was kind of shaping his pedal. I mean, that was kind of towards the end of when I was there.
Yeah.
I remember him kind of shaping this pedal out of this kind of what looked like a hunk of plastic.
Yeah.
A draftsman's drawing board there with all these designs on it for these little DMR chain tugs. I think were the first thing they did. And then it was like, it was just like this. I think Damos is still the same now, actually. He is. Every time I go down there, I go to his office, and it's just like. just a shithole in his office. Like, it's just. But he must know where everything is. But there's like, you know, oh, there's a carbon frame over there, and there's like, you know, a stack of pedals and some grips, and he's just this, I don't know, creative, amazing design people have got this thing, haven't they? They that's their
totally, and obviously some amazing parts have come out of that guy's head, you know, and I think that mixed with some of the design stuff that like Ollie as well adds to it.
Yeah,
it's perfect, isn't it? Like, you know, some of the stuff that comes out of there, and then obviously doing signature stuff with like Brendan, for example, as well.
I mean, for me, I saw it back, you know, 25 years ago, and it was just these two young guys who had, you know, Damien was like the creative design mind that was brilliant, you know, and it was such an early time, like 95. I mean, BMX was kind of at the World Championships in Brighton for racing, but it was, the dirt jumping scene was really kind of coming on, you know, and dirt jumps then, to us, we used to go and watch and ride a little bit. Like, we used to go down Hastings and, you know, watch them riding there, and then he had the backyard jam down in Bexhill and things, and it was just like, you know, the biggest jump they were doing there, like the chasm, which was over like this kind of gully, which was mental. People trying to do 360s, and, you know, Superman over it, and crashing horrendously. But there'd be like thousands of people. If you ever see a picture of like the chasm and the backyard jam, 95, 96, it was epic, you know. And you had Californians coming over, so BMX was great. And then, but back then the riders, like Chico, who we sponsored, was such a cool guy, and he would be at the skate park with dirt jumps, Sunday racing, you know, Sunday night he's in the bowl, you know, pulling sick tabletops or, you know, whatever, and the riders were riders. They didn't just race, or they didn't
really. See, I don't really know, like, personally I don't know too much about that BMX scene back then. I think I was, you know, I did watch certain edits. I'm trying to think what would be popular back then. I guess probably like Dave Mirra's video game probably also lent a big hand in blowing BMX up, and I think that's when I really started to enjoy BMX, was after that, and finding out, like you said, like some of the guys and, you know, some of the athletes that were featured on that game. But I'm trying to think, like, there was people maybe like Mike Aitken and people like that were sort of coming through.
You had there's one guy called Brian Foster who was Foster, amazing racers. Like, if you want to do a tabletop, or you know, maybe Ollie might agree. I don't know if he knows, you know, he's seen Brian Foster, I'm sure. But this guy would like be in his full race kit. He'd be riding for Schwinn, and he'd be in his full race kit, and then kind of like in between the, you know, the motos and the semis, they have a dirt jump competition, and Brian Foster would come out and just pull the sickest, flattest lazy one hand 360s. Fully flat, and that was kind of, like, now he's 40. I don't know, he's on Instagram, 40 something. He's just trained to be a physiotherapist, and then his lunch break he's nipping down the bowls, and he's still doing big fat lazy 360 tabletops, and it's just like bang, legend, you know. And back in those days it was like racers, freestylers,
right?
And then, you know, their parts in some of the kind of like some of the videos, you know, they're racing 1 minute or dirt jumping 1 minute, and then they're going to do a big wall ride the next. So it's such a cool time to be, I suppose, briefly back into BMX.
And it sounds like your spot too on Golden Barn was almost like a bit of a hub for the whole thing.
Oh, it was. It could have been amazing. We had outside the front. It was amazing. Outside the front of our shop, we had these really. It was funny, like these dirt jumps. We had a massive tabletop, a big hit, a few little kind of like doubles, you know, little kind of like a little 6-pack, and a massive roll-in. So you could just get insane height off this tabletop. And then over on the left, you had like this big hit. You could just do, you know, that was cool. And we had the Bmx Olympics up there. So we had like, you know, these kids. It sounds. We were out in the middle of nowhere, kind of thing. There was no bus stop nearby. There was no train nearby. You had to parents had to drop their kids up there.
Okay.
And we were like, these kids would ride these jumps all day long, and at the end of the day, they'd end up with broken pedals, broken handlebars, and we were just like, when you So we were like, yeah, we just got this delivery, and the kids, we'd already primed the kids, you know. I mean, bless them. I still see them now. It's still some of the good fun. And their dads would turn up, and they dad, I need some new bars, I need some new grips, I need this, you know. And we'd be like, ching ching. But it's funny, they just hours of entertainment. And when it would be raining, we just put props videos on and like
props. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Props. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We just have this row of kids like making us tea and with these videos, and it'd be like youth club. We're trying to run a business. DMR in the back trying to, you know, create a global brand.
Making pedals out of Dremel.
Packing up all these bits to distribute to here, there, and everywhere. And there's all these little kids just, you know, being annoying, you know, nuisance. And, I mean, one kid, we came out one day, and they all had our bike. They all bought bikes from us. You know, it was a kind of cool.
And what were they buying then? Was it a DMR bike or was it?
No, we myself and Dan ended up with kind of these race bikes, aluminium race bikes.
And what did you brand those up as then?
We called them Bmx because we tried to play on the motocross name because the track was still kind of running but yeah, they were cool bikes, you know. But then I noticed toward later on the DMR had built the Trigger, and that was kind of a chrome ollie, more like a street dirt jump kind of solid, you know, good frame. And some of the lads have still got them now, you know. we have one lad, and we just as we came out, heard someone say, no, don't do it. And he set this jump up on this wall. And as we came running out, this lad, Mark, came round the corner, hit this jump. You know when you hit a jump and it's like fail of the day?
Oh, yeah.
He literally fell about 4 foot face first into concrete.
Jeez.
Knocked both his teeth out. And I just remember myself and Dan going, oh, fuck. That night, we straight to the hospital trying to avoid being sued by his mum or something like that. And it was just like, you're right, Mark. No front teeth and surgery. It was like that all the time. But watching these riders, they were there's one lad, Tom Lang, ended up working for DMR, and he won't mind me saying when he was like the worst rider, and when I came back from being away and came back, he would become the best rider. And I think he used to run the road trips for DMR, and he was just they you know, the time I left and then came back, these guys had just turned into unbelievable riders. But you know, it could have been, we had plans for like a centre of excellence for BMX racing and things like that. We had the first straights put in up at the track next to the motocross track.
Oh really? Yeah. Wow.
Like Dylan Clayton, who was like Dr. Smooth, his dad, I remember his dad came down and looked at it and he just went, oh my God, Bike Fest. And that was 95. He just looked at it and went, Bike Fest, you know, BMX racing, motocross. It was like pre-Crankworks. I started doing a lottery fund to get stuff put in, and you know, because the National Lottery started. So it's quite a cool. It was such a fun time.
What happened then? How come that didn't come off?
Basically, it was Dan's dad kind of wanted to create more stuff up the motocross track as I remember it, but it kind of just where we had the dirt jumps opposite the shop. I think Dan's dad wanted that land back to do for something else, so that kind of like, oh right, we can't use that. And then up at the farm, up at the track, that was going to become, they had big plans to make the track more of a practice track, and they needed that kind of area. So it kind of just unfortunately just put a kind of stop to what could have been, you know, very good. But there was also, you know, it was a massive security thing up there, you know, like we used to run over the top of the hill and go and watch the motocross, you know. Imagine, you know, if you had a huge dirt jumps up there and everything, you'd have kids just breaking in left, right and centre. Imagine like now trying to control someone's, you know, private compound. It'd be that's what it was.
Tough. Real tough. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's really sad, isn't it, that you even have to say that now. Like you know, it keeps annoying me so bad, man, with all these break-ins that we keep getting, and we've gone through like another bit of a spike of it up this way. It seems to go in like waves when there'll be like loads of break-ins and stuff. It's just sad that you even have to think about it. You know, it really really grinds my gears, that does, man, if I'm honest with you. The fact that you can't do that because you're going to think, well, someone's going to break in and rob all the stuff. It's like, fuck. What a shit country to live in sometimes.
Well, even our little unit was like Fort Knox. I mean, my mate built all the gates, and it was like solid. It would have been easier to take the roof off than it would have been come to the front door. Yeah, and it's but it was, you know, it is what it was, but it was Damo and Matt they carried on, and we just decided.
So DMR's Matt, Riley, and Damien, isn't it?
Yeah, Damien Mason, Matt Riley, DMR.
DMR, yeah. Damien Mason, Matt Riley, yeah. Cool, okay.
But Matt was like marketing man. I mean, like now, I think how people do it now. I mean, how you market your business now. Back then, it was just like, you had to obviously like the print magazines, you know, Dirt, and it's taking a quarter-page advert or a half-page advert, and it's just epic. Trying to get the word out then of where you were. It was like, I mean, we had the Bmx Olympics and had a little article in a magazine. It was just basically, you know, sprints, bunny hop competition, long jump, you know, and
that sounds awesome.
It was classic, you know. It's just like, right, what should we do? Got a couple of pro riders, like, you know, come and egg the kids on.
But like you said, then even marketing that you're doing, that was tough. You know, how do you tell people? How did you tell people? Do you remember? Like, how is it magazines and?
Yeah, just magazine. I think with magazines, we had a little like obviously quarter-page advert.
And back then it'll have been what, Mountain Biking UK.
We used to advertise in BMX. Ride. It was Ride back then.
Yeah.
Then Dirt came along, and then you had like a mountain bike magazine. So more for DMR and the upgrade stuff. It was kind of a combination of both. But yeah, it was tough. It was like I say, there was no internet. I mean, that was like 95 and no emails. It was phoning people up and phoning, you know. How
fucking weird is it when you think back? Like, isn't it? How strange is it when you think back and you're like, wow. Like, I remember again, sort of like finding out about like Sheffield. We used to have a Supercross in Sheffield in the arena, and sort of like trying to find the dates for that when I was a kid, because I was super like weird about that sort of stuff. I used to be like obsessed, you know, like, trawling through magazines just looking for a date, and it like now you'd literally just Google it. You can just do it on your phone in 2 seconds. You'd be like, date Supercross Sheffield, like boom, it's there. And you had to like work your ass off to find out, like, right, is it happening? When's it happening? What date? What riders are coming? It was but do you feel like you was like way more invested in stuff back then? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, completely. Well, we went to there was a Supercross at NEC, and that would have been, I don't know, late mid-90s, but I can't remember now. But Dan was riding. Dan got an invite to race at his Supercross at the NEC. But for us to get there, my mate said, well, I can get us there, but we've got to go to Bradford first. I got some antiques off from my old man. So we had a Ford Transit with obviously 3 people in the front, and there was about 4 of us in the back. So we drove up to Bradford from Brighton, hours up to Bradford. No disrespect to Bradford, but we and then we went from Bradford down to Birmingham. No idea where the NEC was. No. You know, it wasn't like stick it in your twat nav and kind of like right, where's the NEC? Ended up in the middle of Birmingham somewhere. And I remember all of a sudden my mate we were in the van, slammed his anchors on, and there was like, I got crushed by about 3. There was like girls in there. Like, it was just like crushed. He'd almost run over a family crossing the road because he was so tired. He'd been driving all day from like 6 o'clock in the morning. We found the NEC, got there, went in, saw Dan getting ready, went up in the stands to watch this race. And I think it was Larry Ward was over.
Oh wow, yeah.
A couple of good riders. And basically we watched Dan throw his bike round the track for about 2 hours. Just crushed on every corner. And it was like, fuck's sake, Dan. And I spoke to him about it the other day, and he actually said, the track was horrendous. No one knew anything about Supercross.
No, dude, those early Supercrosses when we used to have them in England were so funny. Because you go, I remember again, like as a kid, just going to watch practice. You didn't even really be that bothered about the main event. It was like, no, we just want to go to the practice through the day and watch people just wreck themselves. And then it's funny because then over the years, I became that guy that people would be like sat in the crowd, like, right, what's this?
Oh, man.
It's
I mean,
funny.
he took out a cameraman once.
Really?
Like, literally, came up through the set of whoops. Just, I know when you see him. I mean, I love it. I love watching you do, but when you see him get it wrong, and they got like a handful of throttle, and he just landed that, and his cameraman just went. It's just gone, camera everywhere. And
those Supercrossers were gnarly. It was, I mean, the tracks was like, Americans used to come over, I guess, and be like, what is this shit? Like, this is the most basic Supercross. I might as well ride around a car park. And then all the UK guys would be like, do a double? No, we don't do doubles over here, dude. It was so scary. Oh, good memories though, for sure, going and watching those things. God.
Yeah. But no, that kind of, I suppose my era with Upgrade, that kind of ended there when we just...
Yeah, how did it end, out of interest? Like, how come you exited?
Well, we kind of, not that I regret it, from looking at where they are now, at all. But no, I don't. We just decided, myself and Dan decided to, because we had no part in trade, and the only reason really to come up to our shop was you could come up, the kids could come up, they could ride, they could have fun, hang out. But if there wasn't the ride in there, we just kind of took the decision, look, it's not, we had an option to move to Brighton, but then we didn't have anything. It would just be another shop, and I just didn't want to be another shop.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of just naturally, we just decided to call it a day. I mean, Dan was pretty busy. He had this industrial estate to run, the track to maintain. I mean, so we kind of just pulled out, and we just said, look, we're going to pull out, and it was all cool. It wasn't.
Yeah. So at the time then, sorry, I don't want to pry too much into the ins and outs of the business, but like, who owned Upgrade? Was it just you and Dan, or was it all four of you?
It was all four of us at the time.
Right.
We all put our money in, and then obviously myself and Dan kind of, we kind of laugh about it now, and we took our bit of money out, and
then Matt and Damien. But Matt and Damien owned DMR separately anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, understood. Right. So then when you exited, it just left them with Upgrade and DMR, which is obviously what's still around today.
Yeah, so Upgrade is like the distribution.
Yeah.
And then, I suppose they say that DMR is the house brand, or that's their brand. So the Upgrade Bikes is just the distribution for, numerous products, brands.
And you Pivot and a bunch of stuff as well, right? Yeah.
And Design and Lizine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. But back then, I went off travelling. I got a phone call from my brother who's in Australia. He said, look, you're not doing anything now. Come to Australia. So I did. I had a few £100 in my pocket, went to Australia and kind of, came back, and it was DMR had moved into this kind of barn, and, bigger premises, and the team had got bigger, and it kind of just blown up in the 3 years that I'd been away.
Right.
And it was amazing. They had the Trail Star. They kind of designed and built the Trail Star. So I instantly went and grabbed one of those. And I think Matt Damo set me up with like a £50 reject or something. I would come back, it was like a return. And I was like, I didn't care. I got the frame. And the lads that were riding, have been riding, and our customers and our mates, they built these insane trails just up the road. A little Komatsu digger up there. So we had this sick dirt jumping set up, so just start riding again up there. But I'd been surfing, I'd been away and surfed, and all I wanted to do was surf.
Right. Is that something that you had from an early age though? Because you said you're from Brighton, or I never really surfed in Brighton when I was younger. Right.
I always remember a mate of mine. He was like 3 years above us. Guy called Greg Watts, and he lives out in the Caribbean now, I think. But he had this, he got this typical surf, wiry, curly hair, mad. It grew out like an afro. And he had the combi van, and he'd just always be heading off to Cornwall. And I just thought he was the coolest cat ever. It was like this, dude. And I remember being 15. When I was 15, I saw a magazine. And I think the only thing I've ever known I wanted to do is surf. And that came from a picture I saw in a magazine. Somehow I got a surf mag, and there was like these young kids in there, and I was just like, that's what I want to do. I just want to do that.
And, yeah.
Kind of, yeah. As soon as I got the opportunity to go to Australia, I was like, right, I'm off. I'd been surfing a bit, like a weekend warrior, but when I went to Oz, it was like, right, I got 1 year, lived by the beach, just surfed every day.
Amazing.
And then back when they moved to Cornwall, got qualified as a surf instructor, moved to Lanzarote, surfed in Lanzarote for a year.
Wow.
And then came back, and then just bikes became a little bit less, and surfing became it's pretty it became a very selfish pursuit, I suppose. Surfing, like anything.
I love it, man. It's one of those things that I wish I was good at. I mean, I did the whole live in Australia by the beach thing for a year, and honestly, when I finished that year, I was still no better at surfing than the day that I landed in Australia. I was still absolutely horseshit. Dude, I'm so bad. It's crazy.
You got to come down here, and
mate, I am so bad at surfing. I just can't figure it out. I don't know what it is. When I was in Australia, actually, I got into bodyboarding a little bit more, which is whatever. I know surfers hate that stuff, but for me, it was like way easier than just trying to get out the back of the break. I was just like, well, I can at least get this bodyboard out there and lay down and have some fun. But yeah, standing up on a surfboard is still one of those things that I just out of 10 waves, I might stand up 0.5 of them, and just.
I still do a bit of coaching now, and
right
with people I know, and standing up is the easy bit. Standing up, I get hands down. Standing up on the surfboard is the absolute. If you can stand up, it's everything else.
Wow.
When's the wave coming? Which way's the wave going?
Yeah.
The tide.
Oh, it's a science, isn't it, bro? It's big
so
time.
Much to it, yeah. And it's all like little barriers you break down.
Yeah.
But.
I feel like it's hard to get like a consistent wave. That's one thing that I've really struggled with. Is just we don't up here. We've got sort of Scarborough, Whitby, and places like that. But whenever I've been, it's not consistent. I've been to Surf Snowdonia a few times. But I love that because it's consistent. You know every time what that wave's going to look like, give or take. It's going to be very, very similar. But I think when you're just thrown into some choppy waters in the UK East Coast, it's not the best way to be learning.
I spent years, I don't know how many years driving from Brighton to Cornwall. Like when it used to take 8 hours, 8.5 hours driving there, and I just try and surf all weekend. I try and get a wave, never stand up, never catch a wave, and after 3 days, driving back to Brighton, just destroyed.
Salt water still coming out of your orifices.
And I just like, why the fuck am I doing that? But then 2 weeks later, you find yourself going down there, and again, it's like it was no internet. Like now, it's just like, oh, go online, look on the web,
check the report.
It's easy. I sit in my house now, and rather than walk over the road, I go on a webcam and just see what the beach is doing.
Really?
And it's so lazy. Yeah, not all the time, but back then it's like get the newspaper and see what a synoptic chart's doing. Where's the low pressure system? Trying to work out the wind and the direction. And I guarantee I get down there, be fucking howling like wind in your face. And I'll be like, oh man, So
I think as well as what I really like about surf and the industry is it's quite similar to the mountain bike industry, but yet to me it feels so far ahead. So I always look at the surf industry as like inspiration. I mean, I remember like looking at when I was even starting this podcast, the surf industry had loads of podcasts already. Like they were, I'd say 3 or 4 years ahead of everything that seems to happen in mountain biking. I feel like the color palettes, the edits that come out, just the general sort of, I wouldn't say the vibe I'd say the vibe that it puts out, but just the way it presents itself. I feel like mountain biking then just follows that a few years later down the line. The same with snowboarding, it's similar to that. I think surf and snow are quite similar, and then we just sort of lag behind. So I like to think I know, like, I wouldn't say a lot about the surf industry, but it's something that I keep a handle on, probably way more than I should, because they seem to actually carve out the path that mountain biking is going to go on in a few years' time.
I think there's similarities between, like snowboard, mountain bikes, surfing, like the big wave surfing, which it's not my cup of tea. The whole jet ski thing, and I'm not into that. I love seeing someone paddle into a massive wave. That to me, if they're paddling into a massive wave under their own steam, and they make it and survive, that's just epic. You know,
Yeah.
if they get towed in with a jet ski, no, I mean, I couldn't do it. I'd die. I would die on the first wave, absolutely, hands down. I'd be dragging me out on, you know. So, you know, massive respect, but I love the paddling, big wave surfing.
Yeah.
You've got like this, I suppose that's like the free ride, the whole free ride kind of. You've got surfers now that are just going off and they're getting paid to just surf.
Yeah.
The same as, I suppose, you know, some of the mountain bikers.
But again, totally, like, I think that was happening in the surf industry before the mountain bike industry. That people were getting paid just to travel, make vlogs, create cool content, and getting paid probably, you know, quite heavily for it. And then again, we've followed that now with our own sort of batch of really good vloggers and sort of mountain bike travel people.
It's interesting. You had like back in, there's a guy called Brendan Margison or Margot. He's hysterical. If you ever see a film called it's called Wonder Yar.
Okay.
Wonder Yar.
Okay, that's actually a good question. So if people aren't into surfing that much, what's one surf film that you need to see?
Oh my God, what a question. One surf film. Oh, I get shot for saying any, and there's so many. Big Wednesday to Hollywood, the actor Hollywood. Point Break, Bank Robbers, Keanu Reeves, all that crap.
Right.
You know, you can nail. You can, as a surfer, you can watch that film. You go, hang on a minute, he's on the 2-foot wave there. Next minute, on the same wave, it's 15 foot and it's wide.
Yeah, it's like the Supercross movie that they put out. God, it was goddamn awful. Kicking each other off in the air and all sorts.
And then you've got Big Wednesday. This is kind of Hollywood films.
Right.
Big Wednesday is a classic. Big Wednesday is written by a surfer, based in the 60s. True, kind of based on truth, where some of the surfers went off to Vietnam, some of them stayed, some of them became, you know, they kind of. I mean, it's true. A lot of the surfers in the late 60s, you could get out of going to Vietnam by becoming a drug addict. You went to the draft, you were hooked on heroin. That happened a lot in Hawaii and places like that, and they get hooked on heroin, get out of the draft, and then go and live in the mountains for a month, go cold turkey in a cave, and then just go surfing. And then and there's one guy, Wayne Lynch. He went kind of bush for 2 years. He had the police hunting him in Australia for 2 years. He was just like, I'm not going to Vietnam. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But so Big Wednesday kind of picked up on that, and there's some classic characters all growing up in the 60s in California, and it's just kind of like truth in it, and the surfing's pretty good. It's no, you know, so that's like a Hollywood, you know. As far as just a film to watch, there's so many.
Is there Riding Giants pretty good?
Endless Summer.
All right.
Endless Summer. Watch Endless Summer. That's where it all began.
Okay. Endless
Bruce,
Summer.
so if you like motocross, Bruce Brown, who did On Any Sunday.
Oh yeah.
So he also did Endless Summer. So he narrated
of it.
And that's kind of everything about surfing. Packing your bags, going to a place. I mean, I had an Endless Summer moment when I was in Lanzarote. A few of us went to a place called Graciosa, this little island. And there's a moment in Endless Summer where they come up over the sand dunes, and what lies in front of me is called Cape St. Francis, and this is perfect, just reeling, like almost like wave pool perfection, just one after the other, these waves, and they just run down the sand, you know, of this wave. No one's ever surfed it. Fishermen are the only people they knew it was there.
Right.
And we had a little moment like that in Lanzarote, and this little island where we walked up one side of the island, not knowing what we were going to get, and then we got to the crest of it, and as soon as your eyes just spot the wave, it's just this wave just peeling across this bay, and we kind of were running, like literally, you know, your pace gets up, and you start kind of walking a bit faster. So we got to the bottom. It's about 45 minutes up and over.
Okay.
We got to the bottom. My mate tripped over and fell on his brand new board, literally unwrapped and waxed up that morning, and put about 10 puncture holes in the bottom of his board.
Oh, shit.
We just like went. It was just like almost crying.
Oh no!
You know? And then we just like, well, see you in a minute, Don. We're gonna crack on. You can plug that, you know. And Endless. That's that kind of old movie, but it's got everything about what surfing's about.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
So
It's always good just to get those, like especially from someone like yourself who knows that industry, knows knows about it, and again, I'm listening to this going, right, okay, I want to learn more about that. So what do I watch? What's my thing? What is it? So Endless Summer, perfect. I'll add that to when this goes out. I'm going to be putting out that the lists of things to do through winter. So I'm going to add that. That was my plan as well just then. So.
It's a good modern, obviously modern ones. You can't go wrong watching Kelly Slater and
that Momentum generation. That was sick. That was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean that generation, that for marketing, as a how they've come from, like say, video, VHS, putting out an edit. Like now it's, you see it now, don't you? It's constant every day. There's a new edit coming out. I mean back then it was more like the Death Grip kind of thing. Big. Yeah,
big production,
going somewhere, traveling. I mean, there's one film called Sipping Jet Streams, which is beautiful, really gorgeous, and it's got some amazing surfers. And they go to Morocco, and they go to all over these. It's beautifully filmed in Hong Kong. They're surfing these waves in Hong Kong. Beautifully filmed, all quite arty, but it has a massive production, kind of.
Again, we were talking just before about how, surfing's ahead of mountain biking. I mean, I was just thinking about it a little bit then as you were talking. I mean, obviously it's going to be because surfing's been around for a lot longer than mountain biking. But I'd like to see sort of what surf films look like when, for example, something like Earthed or something like that came out. I'd like to see like what surfing was doing. I might have a look at that and see what sort of films were around at a similar sort of time, and if any inspiration maybe pulled across. I think that would be pretty interesting. Someone like Clay Porter would probably be really good to talk about that and where their inspirations were coming from.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's kind of like there's so many different aspects of surfing as well, like dirt jumping, free ride, enduro, downhill. In surfing you've got the shortboard rippers that are now doing all the literally gymnastics on surfboards.
Yeah. I've seen like the big air competition, like the Red Bull doing stuff.
Yeah. And it's you've got the skateboard influence coming now fully into surfing. Fully into into competition, and then you've got the longboard, like the more soul-y, trippy kind of like really sort of vibe to it. And there's like an alternative movement where people are riding everything, and there's some really nice. Some really nice edits where there's, I don't know if you've seen Stab, it's like Stab magazine, and they get one surfer and they give him about 10 surfboards, all black.
Oh, really?
It doesn't know who they're made by. And you put the best surfer on these boards, and then he kind of says, yeah, that's the best one. I like that one.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's the best one. And then the shaper might be some underground shaper that kind of.
Oh, wow, that's a super cool idea. It'd be good to do that with bikes, but there's that many geeks out there that'd be like, that's they'd be able to nail it with exactly what it is already. You'd be like, fuck. Yeah, it'd be really difficult to do with bikes. You have to cover them up or something. That would be you'd maybe put like something over them so you can't tell what bike it is. That's interesting though. I like that. That's a really good premise. Again, leaps ahead, just killing it with cool content, different stuff.
I think it's just like the drone stuff now is cool. Like surf, mountain biking, and in snowboarding. I mean,
apart from when they fly drones over the ocean, you can see how close the sharks are to you. I'm not a massive fan of that. I don't think. Like, I don't want to see it.
Have you seen? There's one story. There's a documentary which I still haven't seen with this guy Wayne Lynch.
Right.
And he talks about. It's on YouTube, and it's if you put in Wayne Lynch shark story. And it's I think it comes up, and he's saying this guy he goes to this spot, no one knows where it is, a proper local spot, it's like locals only. He gets there and there's this guy paddling out, and he's like, who's this strange bloke, so he paddles out. All of a sudden this guy who's there somehow stumbled across his wave, gets stuck in a rip current. So Wayne Lynch goes, I've got to go and rescue him now. He's now impacting on my surf, on my time. So he's gone out to get him. He's pushed him in, and he knows all of a sudden I think he says he sees a fin, like great white fin, massive fin, and he pushes this guy and he gets him to the beach, knowing that this shark is kind of like either circling him or under him, and he's just waiting for the hit. Anyway, gets this guy in, gets out, and Wayne Lynch didn't know that his mate was up on the headland looking down. and he said that he watched this shark go out, literally came towards them, went out so many, like 100 meters or so, turned and came at them. He said, I've never seen a shark go so fast. He thought, I thought that was it. And he literally got to the tail of the board and just went to the side and then went off. And he said, I thought you were gone. And he said it was massive. This shark was massive. So,
you know what? I've just reminded me of something which I totally forgot about because I'm an idiot. We bought some jet skis while I was living in Australia. We were at a place called Cronulla. And we went out and, on the ocean on these jet skis, and I was on the back of my cousin, and we were doing that thing, where you sort of go real fast and try and get them off.
Yeah.
And we saw a fin. And that was the last time I pretty much went in the sea, I think. That was me done. I was like, right, that's it. I ain't going back in that. No chance. I totally forgot about that until just now. So, it turns out I forget about a lot of stuff that happens in Australia. So,
a lot safer on land.
Yeah, big time, man. Yeah, big time. It's a scary thing for sure. I wouldn't want to wrestle with a shark. That's no. I'll take my chances with trees, thank you, and stuff.
No, it was. I don't know. Mick, have you seen the guy called Mick Fanning, where he pumped that shark? I think that kind of.
Didn't that happen to him twice, and then like a year after or something?
I don't know. I know.
Or was it? It happened to somebody else a year after, almost to the day.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
At the same place, there was a guy, Taj Burrow.
Yeah.
It's like same competition, but I think it was maybe a year or 2 years before. He took off on a wave, and you can see it in the video. The camera and the fin. I mean, I don't see. I'm sitting on a chair. The fin was like 2-3 foot out the water. As he dropped down the wave, the fin was there, and he just basically you see him just pull up and straighten up and just caught the wave in. And he said, "No, I'm not going out there." And they were. Him and the water photographer were chatting. Said, "Did you see the size of that?" And
jeez.
It was like, And then he decided not to surf. He said, "That's it. I'm not." And he got really bagged. He got a load of grief for being, saying, "Oh yeah, you're a chicken and whatever."
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, major pussy, not going in the water with a massive shark who wants to eat you.
I think the bodyboarder got munched a couple of days later or a week later in the same spot, and they were like, "Yeah, fair enough." But,
Jesus Christ.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. So tell me, let's talk a little bit about obviously the thing that we connected on when we were chatting, Freedom Ride. If it's okay to talk about the book that you're working on. So the initial idea was to get you on here when it's ready, but we'll do that as well, obviously. But I was thinking of people to have on, especially with today when it's launched. I don't know when people are going to listen to this, but World Mental Health Day is today, and mental health is something that's super close to my heart, and a lot of listeners, again, especially after lockdown, hearing talking to people, and I've had even some Skype conversations with listeners about mental health and chatting and try and help people as much as possible. And I think I owe it to people as this platform's grown to try and be a force for good. So if you could do you want to introduce the book that you're working on, and maybe tell me a little bit more about how the idea came around and what it is?
Yeah, I mean, I started back in 2010. I started working with some veterans. I was using surfing to help veterans, and we set up a charity.
Is this like a job that just? How?
I going back to go forward. But I became a teacher after the company, going traveling and stuff like that. And then while I was teaching, I ended up supporting a friend of mine who set up a charity using surfing as a way of helping military veterans with post-traumatic stress. So we set up empowerment projects, and we took them surfing, and it was an amazing experience. But one thing that always kind of rang true was one veteran. He was a Royal Marine, and he'd worked at Lockerbie. He got sent to Lockerbie after that plane crashed in, God, I get shot for not knowing the year. But his job was basically clearing up the mess.
Right.
And it massively affected him, as a lot of stuff. So it wasn't combat that affected him. It was kind of like just, I suppose, the everyday job.
Yeah.
I mean, like probably Deeks would say, it's not all Afghanistan. There's other jobs that they get to do. And his life unravelled, And I remember saying to him once, he ended up in prison, and we were supporting him, and I said, how come it, what went so wrong? What happened? And he said, pride comes before a fall. And it's always kind of, the Royal Marines are very proud. They've got that, well, I think military, they're very proud. They've got that training, they've got that kind of, don't let your side down, don't let your right-hand man down.
Mm.
And I thought, well, actually, it's the same kind of thing. At the beginning of, I spent 5-6 years doing that, doing some other work with mental health and the wider community. And I thought, the more I got back into riding bikes again and mountain biking and BMX racing, and I started BMX racing again at 45, I started thinking more about well-being in riding bikes and how it helped, and the benefits.
Yeah.
So being 45 and 51 now, broken foot from BMX racing, going through all these different injuries that, being a dad that should know better. I kind of thought, actually, this link between mountain biking is like, it's not just about, I suppose I wanted to go on a journey to find out more about how well-being or how mountain biking helps us in terms of well-being. And part of it is asking for help.
Mm.
So we don't, with mental health, I've kind of been through the ringer a bit. I have with workplace stress, anxiety. I mean, that's a different thing, but it affected me massively. It affected my family, and one thing that helped me was riding bikes. It got me through a lot.
Yeah.
I stopped surfing because part of it was what had happened was surfing. I just fell out of love. But with riding bikes, it's good to talk. And I wanted to help, and I wanted to become a better rider. And so I kept reminding myself this thing that pride comes for a fall. Well, if I fall off a bike, it's because I'm not a very good rider. I haven't asked for help. So I went and got some coaching, and I had some coaching, and then all of a sudden I'm like, actually, no, now I can do this, and I'm learning to do that, and my feet are in a better place, and I'm going through that rock garden faster, and it started me thinking about other aspects of kind of mountain biking, down to dads getting stressed because their kids won't ride their bikes that they bought them.
Yeah.
And I started looking to that, and I
Really,
started looking why won't my son at 4 years old, why won't he ride his bike? Well, he fucking weighs 70 pounds. Do you know what I mean? And literally, when we worked out the ratio of what it weighs, the average kid's bike, if we were to ride that bike, he wouldn't go into a shop and go, oh, can I buy it? How much that weigh? 65 pounds? Oh, ideal.
It's like trying to pedal a motocross bike.
Exactly. And that's what kids are dealing with. Yeah. And that creates a load of stress. So it's kind of like looking at things where, how can you make it easier? Well, invest a bit of money, buy the right equipment, look after that equipment, and it's a happy world all round, because your kid's going to go, Dad, let's go riding, Yeah. And so I started looking at different aspects, and that's where I am. Really, it's my journey to find out, also about what makes someone tick, what builds their confidence. How does Brendog get the confidence to all of a sudden do a backflip off a massive gap? And I know it's kind of well documented or in YouTube and things like that, but there's so many different aspects to. I was listening to Mac Macduff and Remy Morton. You said, when I listened to that, and I was just like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? And it's kind of listening to what he went through but how.
As well, Matt's got such an interesting perspective on the whole thing because he's in that scene, and I think that's where he can really open up those conversations because he understands it. He is that guy as well. Obviously Matt's one of the guys who's tried to do that insane loop. So Matt can attest to a lot of those things, and I think it is hard for a lot of people to even relate to the thought that you go through before. I mean, Brendan's canyon flip at Rampage, for example. It's very hard for me, you, 99.9% of the people to put yourself in that position of like, right, what's going through your head at that moment, and also what's got you to that place to even think about doing that. It's
It's the same as like for me, my level of doing a gap jump, even if it's just 10-foot gap, it's like I've got to go through this process of I've got to have the confidence, the skills, the confidence to do that. And it's I suppose is it all relative that, you know, if you're a 5-year-old doing your first jump off a half a scaffold board and a few bricks,
yeah.
garden to you know, Brendel doing a backflip on a or Remy Morton doing that insane, you know, like Darkfest and the stuff that they're doing, and it's the same. There's a fear and as in what Matt McDuff said about ego. You know, their worst enemy, you know, is having that ego that they, you know, they're so overconfident that they're that ends up, you know. Yeah, I'm on this little journey, which is I'm really enjoying it, and I kind of got to thank Rory from DMR, because he said to me, he said, so what, have you got a time scale? And I said, well, I'm just writing it, I'm enjoying it, I'm treating it like a research project, and I'm really enjoying that. So I'm kind of just chatting to, you know, when I met you, was basically Rory had set up this. I was up there visiting my family, and Rory said, "Oh, let's get you together at DMR and get you, Matt, Dan together at where DMR started." So we went up there and chatting, and Deeks and Ollie came along. So I got to meet those guys, which was, you know, little humble me. You know, got the you know, you have these, you see these people on, you know, YouTube or whatever, and I walked past Ollie a couple of times at DMR, and sort of, you know, you recognise I like, you know, and just humble to meet people like that, and then after that, Rory said, "Oh, there's this thing called Freedom Ride, you know, come along." So me and my lad came along, and my lad Jago got to meet Brendel and Sam and Ollie and you know, yourself, and it was just, it was a cool day. And then from that, I think I went back from there super inspired, and I've interviewed some kind of like really good downhill riders and enduro riders, and I've got kind of a friend of mine, he makes chocolate. He's a mountain bike rider, and he makes chocolate, organic,
right?
You know,
wow.
raw.
Okay.
And I started looking into food and how the food helps the brain focus, and you know, and
rabbit holes.
Yeah,
that's the thing, I think, isn't it? It seems like you could, you know, I think we could be sat here 10 years time. You're like, still haven't finished this book.
no, so I've got it down to like 10 or 8 chapters, 8 areas.
Right.
And it's my journey to find out about how people do things, how it helps, and then enter my first enduro and see how that goes at 51 years old. And
really, was that meant to happen this year, but they got cancelled, or?
Yeah. Supposed to be a couple of weeks ago,
right?
And then so it kind of all got cancelled. But mental health and well-being is something that's always been close to my heart, and you know, working.
So what,
and I know you
definitely did. But what was it like then working with some of these, you know, ex-forces people? Again, can you talk a little bit about that, and you know, some of the learning things you went through, some of the stuff that you discovered, and how it sort of impacted your life and stuff?
Oh God, I mean, I worked. A friend of mine came round, and he'd been through the ringer, and he wanted to set up this. Well, he'd been to California actually, and just on a surf trip, and ended up helping a veterans camp out there. They were using surfing to help veterans, and same thing with amputee. You know, like they'd been to Afghanistan, so they had physical injuries, mental injuries. He brought the idea back, and we established this little charity. And some of the veterans, they'd gone from way back to the Falklands, to Iraq, Afghanistan, and some of their stories were just like epic. You know, it was shocking. It's shocking, and there's a thing called transference, where the more you kind of like hear, the more someone says. You know, I didn't want to know a lot of stuff. I didn't want to listen to kind of like the darkest kind of stuff. You know, I wasn't a trained counsellor, and I didn't have the kind of the tools to deal with these you know, the stories. But it does rub off. It does rub off, and it has an impact on you. And as the kind of like the years went on, the more stressful it got, the more running a charity, finding the funding, keeping it going, and then all of a sudden you've got all these guys that are relying on you to keep the thing going.
Yeah. And what other support was there for these guys then, which I'm curious about? You know, you say you're offering, some sort of maybe structure and something to look forward to, and also someone to talk to, probably someone as well with, I think, with not having that background, probably more relatable in some ways to talk to you. But yeah, what other support are these guys getting?
Well, we were the things that we were doing the surfing, which is like a respite. It's like when we go mountain biking. If you're having a bad day, you go for a ride, and it's not the cure. So we always said it's not the cure, but it's kind of respite, and it takes your mind off things. So we were offering that, and then we had a psychological, therapists come in, and they would do a kind of whether it was hypnotherapy or cognitive behavioural therapy, different aspects. The one thing that I noticed through it is that they just it's like a confidence, a self-belief, and the transition between Civvy Street, between the military and Civvy Street for some is a massive impact. They can't get their head around it. So we ended up doing a lot of work with employment-based stuff to build their confidence, build their self-esteem, motivation. And we were doing it down here in Cornwall, and there's so many veterans in Cornwall because it's one of those areas like Sheffield and the northeast, and very industrial areas, or were low unemployment, high unemployment, and so they're kind of like we'll put a recruitment base there, and so they I don't know, pick the 16-year-olds that have got a bit of a social background that is not that healthy. They put them in the army, train them up with a particular set of skills.
Yeah.
After 3 or 4 years, when they've gone off and done this and done that, they've had enough of the army. They come out with they might not have gained any additional skills, but they have got a particular set of skills that they take straight back into their social circles, and all of a sudden they're back into their lives that they were living before they went to the army, still uneducated, but so it has a massive impact. And we're kind of dealing with a lot of that, but some of them are worse than others. Sorry, let me just close my door.
Yeah, it's all right. No worries. It's all good. So obviously some are worse than others and people that you meet and stuff, but it's it must have been a hell of a journey. I'm just curious, man, and you don't have to talk about it, but your own journey through this, with having some issues and stuff, I mean, I was my first kind of impact of mental health was when I was a teacher, and I was bullied in workplace bullying, basically. Oh, wow, right.
And I'm a 6-foot bloke. I look like an egg cup in a wetsuit, by the way. I just throw that in there. But,
if you're not watching on YouTube.
So I've got kind of a wide top half, but skinny little legs. But I got bullied by a woman.
Wow. Okay.
My boss at court. Well, 3 of us kind of were subject to pretty bad behaviour. It was not good, and I just found myself getting more and more stressed, more and more. Well, I'd be at the photocopier crying, and I'll be like, what's going on? And it's kind of, I was dealing with, to give you an example, I had one student, and bless her, I mean, it's a cat, I don't know, don't want to be too sad, but she'd lost, I think her uncle committed suicide, then her dad committed suicide, and then her mum gave birth on, I think it was Christmas Day or Boxing Day. And then while she was giving birth, diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her mum died in May, so she'd lost all her family members. I was talking to her. They came into. I managed to get her through her course. I'd still coming. I was going, just coming. And this guy, a kind of boss said that I needed to discipline her because her attendance was shocking. And that's when I lost my shit.
Yeah, I bet.
I was like, kind of like, I'm not. It was little things like that I just thought, this person is horrendous. We complained about her, nothing happened, and then in the end it ended up with me virtually like being signed off with stress and kind of workplace anxiety. And then I went so I got away from that, which had a massive impact on my family. I mean,
dude, I was gonna say it's like you said, you're bringing it home. Like it's being around those toxic people. I think, I don't want to flip this over to me at all, but I've had a similar sort of experience too, and it's that realization that you're always thinking about it, that you're worried to talk to that person or see him, and like you say, you bring it home and you don't even know you're a different person. You have no idea. It's only when I think you come out of it and you go, where did the last 2 years go? I've been in my own head, basically. I've not even looked up, I'm not seen anyone or anything properly. I'm looking at it through different eyes almost.
Yeah, it's bad. The way it gets you, it kind of, I don't know whether it either creeps up on you or it's happening, but you can't deal with it, and you feel like the confusion, the things you're saying don't kind of add up, the way you react to things, I mean, I just have this image at that time, and I will never forget it, of my lad who's 12 now, and he was 3, and we'd gone up to see my folks, and we'd gone to see my brother, gone caravanning, and I shouted at my son, and made him cry, made him cry, and he went off, and I took a photograph. I don't know why I did. I just took this photograph, and he was sitting on the bench with my brother's dog, little Jack Russell. He was sitting all on his own with his head down, and I thought, fucking hell, I've done that. It's horrible, horrible, and still think of it now.
Yeah, dude, you will do, but hopefully
yeah. And I just kind of, my missus kicked me out on a temporary evacuator, get out of the house. So
naughty step.
Yeah. And I think I went to stay with a friend, and we emailed, actually, strange enough, we emailed what we were both feeling and what my impact on my wife and her, and what she was feeling, and that's what we needed to come through it. And funny enough, working with veterans with post-traumatic stress, it's the families that suffer.
Yeah.
So the what they're experiencing, which is kind of no one should see the things that they see, but the impact of that on their families and their children, you kind of you think that's what it does. That's what stress, anxiety, these things do. It has an impact on those that are nearest and dearest to you.
Totally.
So I mean, I got out of that and went full time with this charity, but I didn't realise I was actually going straight from the frying pan literally into a bigger fire.
Yeah. But do you think some of it was that you wanted that sort of help yourself, or like it just seems strange that opportunity comes up just as you maybe yourself needed that?
Yeah, I think it did. I think, like, when I left teaching, it was like a massive, like, this huge weight off my shoulders, like, yes, I'm free, I don't have to deal with that shit anymore. And it was amazing. Went to work at the charity, it was brilliant. It was kind of like we were doing this amazing stuff. We were on national television doing, the national lottery stuff. It was, we had documentaries kind of being made on us. It was so good. We were running projects. I was going up to London, the Centre for Social Justice, doing work stuff. It was so good. But behind the scenes, all of that, the pressure, and again, I suppose, and I'm not going to blame the person that I was kind of like setting up with, but his ego got kind of out of control. Maybe my ego, when you reflect on things, maybe my ego and control. I mean, I heard you say once that you like doing, not control, but you want something done your way, and you're very like, oh no, we got to do it. We got to do so. So maybe I think the clash of two of us caused problems, and it just ended up an absolute mess.
Really?
Yeah. It was like the charity stuff was hard. We had these veterans we were looking after that were kind of seeing this thing just unfold, and and it had a massive impact on me again. And then I did get help, and I did seek some help.
Right.
I sat down with with this lady that we kind of knew. She used to help the veterans, and it kind of got a lot of it out. When I finally left and just said, right, I'm done, and I finally left, I went and did some training, like therapy training, spectrum therapy it was called, and NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And on that 2 weeks training, which was proper intense, I've never been to a place like unbelievable.
Really?
Like, yeah, got I was a friend of Martin Webster, who ex-army, and he was, I don't know, you might not remember, he was in Iraq in the first, I think when was it, 90s something, late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the second Iraq war. He was there, and he got thrown out the army for bullying. He was kind of one of these, they'd beaten up an Iraqi, and
right.
He admitted to it. It was like, he said you just didn't, in his defence, and he said he didn't, very hard to understand what they were going through every day,
Yeah.
Now he's been thrown in mortar attacks every single day.
Yeah. When you get the hand on those people, it's very difficult to refrain yourself.
Yeah, and he that's what he did. They just grabbed someone, one of these guys off the street and whatever. But Martin retrained and come through this amazing stuff, and he did this training on me, or with us, and part of it was getting rid of our own anxiety, our own kind of stuff, letting go, basically, which I've learned is huge. And he does this thing called drop down through, and it's like, the only way I can describe it is like a tornado, and you kind of say, okay, where are you now? Tell me about this person. Okay, well, he's here. Okay, how does he make you feel? Angry. Okay, what's below angry? Sort of frustrated. Okay, what's below frustrated? And he keeps going down below. And
right.
I felt like I was at the spout, right at the bottom, and I was screaming and shouting and crying and shit. And
really?
All this, like hate. Okay, what's below hate? Oh, it's like, and it's like, and I got to the bottom, and he said, right, okay, and how do you feel now? And he starts bringing you back up again. And as you come back up, all that anger and everything is just gone. When I came back up, I was in tears. And I just,
it's almost like a hypnotherapy then.
Yeah, kind of
right.
like you're in a relaxed mode, deep relaxed mode, but it was getting rid of all the anger and the angst and he said, how do you feel? And I just thought, all of a sudden, just felt amazing. And I just went, what the fuck have you done?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And I just kind of let this stuff go, and it didn't matter. And part of it realised that I wasn't assertive enough, and I was like a yes man. Do this, yeah, okay. Do that, yeah, all right. And I would never say no. I would never say, no, I'm not doing that. So kind of, it made you think, well, part of being, bullied at work or whatever, it was, I was never bullied at school or anything.
Right.
It was like, you just didn't, just say yes all the time, and then you'd say, no, I'm not doing that. But, yeah, I mean, I watched this thing the other day, this guy, he was like a Jewish guy, can't remember his name, and he was sitting there, and he looked like he'd lived a life, he'd looked like he'd properly lived a life. And he said, tell me about anger. He said, anger is like three things. You've got the reaction, you kind of got the anger, and then there's a reaction and how you deal with that reaction, and then there's a resentment. And then you hold on to this resentment. And he said, when I was in AA, so he's obviously, like Alcoholics Anonymous, he said, there was a guy there, and he said, oh, mate, he said, never hold anything in your head. He said, it's like these people, they're in your head, and they're living there rent-free.
So true.
And he said, I'm not the sort of person to give anything away for fuck all. Don't, just let it go.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
There is definitely like a weight that comes off when you do that. I remember I spoke about it a couple of times on this podcast, but probably not gone too deep into it. But the business I had before the distribution company was a camper van company, and it grew to be quite big, and similar to what I think you just sort of spoke about. Me and my cousin, we got to a point where I don't know if he hated me, but I definitely hated him. And before starting this company, we were the best of friends, and we used to love that we were traveling, especially Europe together, and we were building this company. And it got to the end of it, and we just hate. Every phone call was really negative. I mean, I wouldn't say shouting and arguing, but it was very we were very distant from each other, but very close at the same time, which I think is almost worse than falling out. Like, we were still together because we travelled together almost every day, but we'd not talk.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like one word answers, you know, it'd be like, oh, we need to stop for fuel. Yep, cool. And that'd be it, you know what I mean? And I remember when I exited that company, well, we had a massive falling out. I came out, decided I wanted to leave the business. And long story very short, basically, I came away with nothing. You know, I built this company for 4 years. There was a substantial amount of money being made. And I walked away with, you know, dude, I shit you not, like, nothing. Nothing. Not even a pot to piss in. I had literally 50 quid in my bank. So I carried this resentment to him for a number of years. It caused a massive family rift, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I remember it was a podcast I was listening to, and they were talking about this stuff, and sort of making that phone call and just saying, look, I'm over it, and that's it, I forgive you, and I wish you all the best and stuff. And I remember making that phone call once when I was driving, and the feeling after it, and it was a bloody hard thing to do, you know. We'd not spoken for like a year, and I remember calling, and he was like, all right, what do you want? And I was like joking, I was like, dude, like, I'm not spoken to you for ages, and I'm sort of like, you know, it's a bit deep, but I'm sort of working on myself. I can't carry on like this. I'm full of anger, you know, again, resentment. I feel like, you know, I've been walked all over, this, that, and the other. And I said, I just want to say, like, I forgive you, and that I wish you all the best with whatever you're doing. And we both had this like moment, you know, maybe not teary from his end, but from mine, I was like, that felt like really good to like get that out and, you know, not carry it around. But I think you have to be open to doing that stuff, but also you have to open yourself up to learn that stuff to be able to do it. It's like, you know, you saying this, how many people wouldn't even be open to try I can't remember what it was, the volcano
drop down thing,
drop down, you know, but and I think that's the amazing thing now with the access to podcasts and the internet, that you can discover these new technologies or, you know, breakthroughs in science and stuff, and you can try this stuff. A lot of time you can do it yourself. You don't have to sit and talk to a therapist, you know. Exactly. I've done that, and I did not like that experience, I'll be honest with you. I went through that, and I didn't feel like I got anything from it other than every time I left, it cost me 120 quid. And I think that made it worse. I was like, okay, I spent 120 quid, I've been here for half an hour, and I feel exactly the same walking out of this office. Like, what am I doing?
It's hard. I mean, that's the thing is, like, with therapy, there's so many different things that work for some people. Like with the veterans, you know, some of them would have say CBT, and they'd hate it. Others would have like hypnotherapy, and it'd be amazing, and the results were amazing. And some people just needed to go surfing.
But if you're not getting that support, you can't try those things either, can you?
Yeah, and they've got to, and I think that you've got to want to change. You've got to want to, you know, my marriage was kind of like, well, it was, I suppose, on the line, you know, and my family, and I to me, I mean, I'm not going to compare myself to any of the veterans who got the most massive respect for all of them. But you do get a taste when your mind is playing tricks on you, and you're confused, and you don't know what is going on. You know, so at some point you've got to go, I need to change. I need this shit to just go. Yeah. And you have to kind of accept, you know, the fact that there are some people, and I think it's to do with rapport as well. If you get on with someone and they've got a rapport, they can ask you things, you know, like, and you can tell them things. And if you've not got a rapport, you know, there's a trust thing, isn't there? You know, like we had veterans go to like some of the combat stress, and they would go up there, and they had 6 weeks. They were there for 6 weeks, and they wouldn't open up because they're like scared of opening up a can of worms. Quite rightly, yeah. They don't know what's going to come out. Yeah. And then by week 5 they go, oh yeah. Do you know what? Or week 4 they'd start opening up, and then week 6 they've kind of left everything on the table, and it's like, right, well done, Davey. We'll see you.
See you later.
You head off back to Croydon, and we'll see you. And they come back and just be destroyed.
Yeah, you know? Yeah.
So it's kind of hard. It's that thing. So they say if they're paying for it, if you're paying for something, it's, you know, I mean, we were being trained when we did ours. It was part of our training. We had to. It's part of it. You know, we paid a lot of money, $2.5 grand or whatever it was, and it was the best thing that I'd done. You know, and that was just one aspect of it. There was so many different parts of it.
I feel like that's probably the worrying thing as well at the moment with the lockdown situations and the general sort of after effect of this pandemic is people are going to have lost their jobs, people are going to be financially struggling and not be able to get support. You know, the NHS and stuff's already on its struggling, isn't it, because of this anyway. Like, it's struggling. It's always difficult to get to see a therapist. That's really difficult in the NHS. And I think it's I think that's sort of, for me, like, that's some of the anxiety comes from, is like, I'm worried about people I don't even know. I'm just worried. It's like, dude, like, especially coming into winter, you know, winter's going to be brutal this year. I think it's going to be really hard, especially if we end up going back into lockdown. And I think the biggest effect, and I don't really want to be all political and stuff, but like, the biggest effect of this pandemic will be people's mental health. Like, that is what, you know, that's going to be the after effect. People are anxious. They don't know what's going on. They don't know when the next, you know, check's coming in, or if they can put food in the fridge and stuff. And it's pretty fucking worrying, man. Like, it's really worrying.
And I think with that, I mean, going back to the stuff that I'm trying to, you know, doing, like, that pride comes before a fall.
Yeah.
It's part of it is riding with your mates. Do you know what I mean? And like, to bring it, like, to say, talk about mountain biking and winter's coming, it's like, if you're feeling something that's doesn't feel kind of like right, if you're just talk. It doesn't, you know, just it's so important to just I don't know, if a mate says to you, "Are you all right?" Just say, "Oh, not really."
Yeah, I think it's kind of a shame that's become our staple, like, greeting, isn't it? It's like, "Hey up, you're all right." Like, we say, "Hey up," right. I know you don't. You're all right, and your instant reaction is yes.
Yeah.
I think it does take a little while to warm up to be able to say, actually, you know, you asked me half an hour ago if I'm all right. I'm really not all right. Like, I'm actually really struggling. You know, my job's on the line, or whatever it could be, marriage, whatever. I think it's probably a bad thing that we do that as a, you know.
I think we're so programmed to I keep things. I don't know whether it's a bloke thing. I don't know. I mean, part of this, looking at it, is blokes, and you know, we are, I suppose, proud or whatever, and you don't want to turn around to someone and say, "No, do you know what, mate? I'm a mess.
Yeah,
fucking absolute mess."
Yeah.
But because we might be worried, you know, that fear thing of, you know, fear of jumping a gap, you know, backflipping a 60-foot gap. There's the same fear that builds up when you need to talk to someone, and then your mate says you're all right. You go, "I've got to talk to someone. I've got to talk to someone."
Yeah.
My mate's not going to charge me 120 quid.
I think as well, that can be like, the worst thing is when, and I've done this, you know, I've gone through some shit myself, and when you meet up with a good friend and you sit and chat, and I've come away from it thinking, I wish I opened up. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, the whole purpose was meeting to have a chat and a catch up and to have like a meaningful conversation. You know, I always do it with my friends, right? We're sitting down, no phones, we're chatting. And I've definitely come away in the past being like, oh, I wish I'd opened up a little bit about that, because I need to talk about it with someone. Like, I need to get this off my chest. I need to explain how I'm feeling. But I agree with you. I think that there is a stigma there, especially with men talking about mental health. But I'd like to think it's changing a little bit. I think with some media involvement, I know, slightly off topic, but I'm just working on something now with Sax where we're doing a panel discussion about mental health with blokes, about body image and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think the more that, you know, brands get involved that promote positive mental health, and, you know, that's going to help. But it is still a very strange topic that people don't want to talk about. And again, being on the end of this podcast, you know, has definitely opened me up more to how many people reach out and say, you know, thank you for this, or that, you know, something's come from it. I never expected that to happen either. I really, really didn't, that you'd get that sort of feedback off people. But I am glad, you know, obviously I'm glad it is happening. You know, it's really nice.
Obviously, it's funny you mentioned body image and like Sax underwear. I mean, the classic, like, let's say, the surf industry. It's like 2001, 9 of us went to Costa Rica surfing. 9 totally different shaped blokes,
right,
in Costa Rica. And so there's me and my mate Giles. I've already said I look like an egg cup in a wetsuit. You know? That's what. There's me and Giles, pasty white, sunburnt. You only got to look at the sun. Going to get sunburnt in the shade. So we spent, if we weren't surfing, we were in a hammock, probably smoking some Costa Rican whatever, in a hammock, drinking a beer in the shade. Then there was Tim, who had, you see these images, perfect physique, perfect surfer physique, back like that, skinny waist, board shorts, shit hot surfer, his back covered in scars from acne, from years of acne.
Yeah.
Then there was Daff, who was about 4 foot, kind of 4'6" probably. He looked like a little hobbit, dreadlocks down to his back to his knees. Fine. Then there was Jez, and Jez had again perfect physique. Used to wear a little hat, long blonde hair, looked like the perfect surfer. Took his hat off and he had this big bald patch, and he was paranoid about his hair.
Really, yeah.
And then Steve, big lad, big, quite overweight. Kev. The only kind of normal one was the guy called Anthony that just be like, oh, you just, and we'd laugh, look at you. There's nothing wrong with you.
You're just normal.
You're just a radiographer in Brighton. You just, And it was kind of like from there, it actually really made me think, actually, it doesn't matter. It does matter because it has a huge impact. Body image does have a huge impact, But it was funny seeing 9 blokes on the holiday, and the one thing we all had in common was we just went surfing, and it didn't matter what you looked like. And I spoke to a lady the other week up in Sussex. We went up the hills, and she was riding. She came and met me, and she was talking about body image when she was growing up. And I said, does it affect you? And she said, well, not when I'm riding, because we all look like 15-year-old boys. So it's, and I thought it's quite nice. It's but yeah.
Yeah, is it? It's definitely definitely a hot topic, and it's something that it's been really interesting to watch how it, basically with the Saks thing, they led it in the States and Canada, and they did all of their model shots for the coming season are all sort of just unique people. It's not just your stereotypical shredded body pair of underwear. It's, an amputee, an overweight guy, skinny guy, transgender guy, so we're doing the same thing basically in the UK. And it's again, I think it just helps, and I'm not plugging Saks at all, it's not what I'm doing, but I'm just saying that it's something that, it's been really interesting because we've been doing interviews with people and talking about, it's all about mental health and body image basically, and all these amazing stories from people who have lost legs. We've got a guy who was a bin man, got cramp in his calf, and 3 weeks later he had his leg amputated. And it's like people like that, and it's been really humbling as well actually to talk to these people and listen to their sort of take on mental health and body image. So interesting times for that for sure. I'm looking forward to the campaign. Goes out in January, so
cool.
Wait ahead.
There's a guy that Deeks knows. We were chatting there, Andy Grant, and he had his leg, a Royal Marine, and he lost his leg in Afghanistan. And we got chatting because we had a common. We used to run these little surf camps in North Cornwall, and it was a guy called Doc Lambert, who was the naval surgeon that worked on a lot of the guys in Afghanistan, and when they came out off the field with all their injuries. And Andy Grant had lost his leg, and Doc Lambert had sort of taken his leg off. They used to basically say he saved lives and limbs. They called him the Butcher of Bastion.
Oh, God.
But he's a legend. You see Diggs, he's such a lovely bloke, and he used to open his house out to Royal Marines, ex-army, injured guys, and we'd go surfing, get drunk a lot, go surfing.
Nice.
And he worked on took his leg off, and Andy was a Liverpool fan. On the back of the leg, he's got the Liverpool emblem, and it's, you'll never walk alone. And he just basically took his leg off, and when he sewed it up, what he left him was, he just said, you never walk. That's what he left on his leg. Took the tattoo off, just below that, and so now he's got this, this kind of like prosthetic limb, and just above it, it just says, you'll never walk.
Classic.
That's funny. Something kind of like that sort of, but you remember, you look at that and you smile, that it's nice. You hope for you, but I think.
Go on, sorry, after you.
No, I just said you said like mental health is changing. I think there is more awareness, definitely, and I think there's more. It helps when the big forums like, I suppose, the GMBNs and Saks Underwear, that these companies are putting stuff out there, and they're doing creative. They're doing this content where it's about mental health and getting people to talk about it. And it's just normal people. It happens. We've all got mental health. It's just how it how it manifests itself, and
Totally.
you know,
Totally.
and how we look after ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's. I used to have an Indian guy, and I used to have an Indian guy, a neighbour next door to us down here, who was an Indian guy, and every day I see him go for a walk with his big, he had his headphones on, skinny pair of tracksuit bottoms and massive pair of trainers, and every day go for a walk. And I just got chatting to him, and I said, "What do you do?" And because every day I see you going walking, he said, "Oh, he was running a call centre next door from me." You know,
Right.
in his
You have unique neighbours, don't you?
His brother lived in India, and I said, "Well, what?" Yeah, okay, chatting. He said, "But I'm writing a book on meditation."
Oh wow.
And I got chatting because we were using this breathing technique, you know, to just with the guys, we go to the beach and we do some breathing and get them kind of relaxed. And I said, I just said it's mind over matter. He went, no, it's not mind over matter. He said it's mind and matter. He said it's whatever we, you know, when we look after our mind, our matter, our body follows. And he said it's scientifically proven that
Beautiful.
stress will give you a heart attack. You know,
Yeah.
stress could lead to cancer.
100%.
Stress. So he said if we look after our minds, you know, our matter will follow. And ever since then I said, yeah, mind and matter.
Yeah.
And it was a nice thing to hear. And his dad was a meditation master back in India, and you know, and you think, well, they kind of know these guys.
Definitely do, man. And it's been a really interesting journey that I've been on as well over the years, is learning more about that. I mean, the breathing thing, the Wim Hof stuff, I think is a game changer if you're struggling with anxiety. I mean, that is a game changer. But just like the really basic stuff, I can't remember the actual study. I'll probably try and link to it in the show description, but it's proven that 6 deep breaths will lower your blood pressure. So if you are feeling stressed, just taking 6 deep breaths. There's a whole thing as well about covering one side of your nose. You breathe through the left nostril for a minute or two, and it's so weird, huh?
Yeah.
But all this stuff doesn't make money, right? So they'd rather sell you a pill or a whatever.
Yeah. We look at the state America's in with
Exactly.
opioids and things like that, and hopefully, it's, I suppose, the same. I mean, you meet so many people that are, you know, antidepressants, and you go for a walk. My mother-in-law lives in Stoke-on-Trent. She had high blood pressure, you know, and Jill, my wife, she went up and said, "Come on, let's go for a walk."
Yeah.
So, you know, they went for a walk, really enjoyed it. Next night I went for a walk. Next night I went for a walk. I think it was like a week or 10 days. I went back to the doctor, and her blood pressure had just literally plummeted. And the doctor said, "What have you been doing?" And just walking. And he just went, "Keep it up, keep it up. Well, you're on the road to being healthy again." You know,
how crazy is that?
It's just getting out, and it's I don't know. Life can be simple. We can make it really tough. We can make it really hard, and we can put these massive challenges in front of us. But if you actually sit down and go, okay, what is this challenge? What would life be without this challenge? And who am I without this challenge? You know, you kind of come back to, well, I'm kind of me. I'm just me, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What else thinks. You know, it's just at the end of the day, it is how we deal with it. And
I think one of the things as well, if you are struggling with that stuff, is I feel like just the act of trying and doing something makes such a big difference. The fact that you're sort of overriding those sort of thought patterns that make you feel sad or low or whatever it might be. The fact that you're saying to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to try this Wim Hof thing, or I'm going to try this meditation thing, or the walk, or whatever. I think that, for me, that's what really sparks change, and that's what it has been. And I think I'm quite OCD. I get obsessed with things, and I sort of like chase the dragon quite often. I'm like, right, okay, what next? Like, what else can I learn, and what other rabbit hole can we go down? But I feel like it's definitely helping me, and has helped over the years, sort of keep me on the right track, because I've definitely, you know, like a lot of people, I've got issues, man. Like, I've got issues that can easily flare up. Like, you know, give it a little bit of bad news, and that's me. I'm on like a totally different path. But just keeping on with that sort of daily meditation, and just saying to yourself every day, like, nah, I'm gonna conquer this. Like, I'm gonna keep myself on the right path. It's huge. And I think, hopefully, again, like we were saying when we first started doing this, that people have hopefully had a bit of time to discover that stuff through lockdown. I know it's going to be difficult for people, but hopefully they've gone, look, all right, I'm working at home. That means I can go for an hour's walk before work or after work or in the middle of the day. And I think, again, for me, and hopefully I'm not telling people how to suck eggs, but creating that space around yourself is massive. That getting out of that whole, like, get up, go to work, come home, eat, go to bed, and just creating a bit of space and, you know, taking a bit of time to yourself and just going for a walk in the rain or in nature or whatever is massive.
Absolutely.
It is huge.
I did some work with a veteran once, and he was a lovely guy, and he was full of excuses for. And so we did this thing. I said, "Come on, tell me about your, you know, it was like your five reasons that you can't go and get a job." And he went, "Well, I've got to walk the dog." What? So that's a reason. These are the, you know, it was things like, "I've got to walk the dog. It's raining. My car's broken down." You know, there was like a list of 5 excuses, you know, down one side of the paper. And I said, "Okay, now tell me about you as a person and your military career. Who are you? Who are you? What's your 5 qualities?" He said, "Well, I'm strong." Okay. So, well, determined. And he just listed these kind of like 5 attributes that he had, you know, like sort of perseverance and he listed. And I said, "Well, look at those 5 there, and then look at those. Your dog needs walking. It's raining outside." I said, "Now write underneath. Just put bullshit underneath."
What an amazing practice, though, to sit and do that. If you are struggling with that stuff, to sit and journal every day.
Journal every day, right? You know, why haven't I gone out? For what reason am I not going out walking? Well, actually, there isn't really a reason why I'm not going out. So get out and just make yourself, as hard as it might be, it's, you know, you've got to overcome the kind of that initial barrier, and it is hard. And I can't talk for, you know, I can only talk for me personally, what's helped me.
Yeah, same.
When I went through the charity thing, I completely fell out of love with surfing, because surfing became everything. We had to be so high energy for the veterans. You know, you had amputees. You had, you know, I mean, we got kind of like, you know, triple amputees, and you've got to be absolutely up there going, you've got this guy with no legs and one arm, and you've got to get him on a surfboard and keep him stoked while ex-Royal Marine, you know, while he's frustrated that he can't kind of do it. And, you know, and then there's just the other, and then so just the other guys, there's the other guys with the mental health side of things. And then when I wanted to go surfing myself, I was just like, stand there, just sitting, watching the ocean, going, well, no interest. No interest to go surfing. And then, so it was kind of like, right, you know, it was actually, I went back to BMX racing. I got a bike, went to the local club and started racing. And my God, I raced regional BMX with my son for 3 years. And it was amazing. And then gradually I started kind of surfing a little bit, just when it was kind of when it felt necessary. Yeah. And now I'm kind of like, just loving it again. And it was hard. It was I didn't have anything that made me want to go to do what I knew would help me. I knew that going in the water and being in the ocean and just sitting there would kind of like completely help. But you know,
it's weird how that happens. Again, I went through a similar thing with mountain biking. That mountain biking became stressful. Being around bikes became stressful because it was my job. And you know, going back a few years, I was flat broke, struggling to get around the country to do my job, all this sort of stuff. And then it got to the weekend or the evenings, and I'm like, the last thing I want to see is a mountain bike. The absolute last is a bike, because all I've done all day is be stressed about those things and that industry. So it's funny when that happens. And I think obviously I get hit up quite often as well about people wanting to get into the bike industry and asking how you do it. And it's like, obviously it's an amazing industry to work in. I wouldn't change it for the world, but think long and hard before you turn your hobby into a job, because that hobby quickly becomes a job, and it totally changes your relationship with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that release that you get from it, all of a sudden it's not there anymore.
Yeah, and it feels like you're like an observer. You're watching other people enjoying something that you kind of know you should be. Yeah, but you can't bring yourself. I didn't want to go and hear people hooting and hollering.
100%.
You know, that's why you hear every day people going, you know, catching a wave, and you're like, you know. fuck that.
Yeah.
I'll go down the end of the beach and surf a wave on my own.
Totally, man. Totally.
It's like, yeah, it's there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, good stuff out there. There's a lot of good ways to get through.
Definitely.
And I think mates are the perfect starting point.
Yeah.
If you can, as hard as it might be, just pick up a phone and go, mate, can I have a chat?
Yeah.
Can I talk? What about? Well, and I think, I don't know, would it be a high percent, 90% and 99% of people would be pleasantly surprised that their mates would go, chat away, mate.
100%.
Yeah.
100. I think you've always very surprised, and again, going through something quite similar, opening up to your friends and hearing them say, well, yeah, I've had those same feelings. I've gone through something which I've never spoken about to my friends. Yeah. And that's always kind of strange when you've got some of the closest friends and you find something out about them that they've never spoken about because it was too difficult to talk about because we're too proud.
Yeah. Well, I like listening to your podcast to your mates. That was...
Oh, really? Yeah, with us three.
Yeah, that was classic. I really enjoyed that because it was just three blokes just chatting.
Well, the whole story is going to be on TV shortly, so... Yeah, it's going to be on the BBC. So a bit of an exclusive. But hopefully it makes it on. But we should be next week or two. So on Saving Lives at Sea. So yeah, we went and filmed for that the other night. So
yeah, I saw that on the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, should be interesting.
I mean, how do you feel after all that now? Is it easier or is it still?
You know what? Talking about it the other night in front of a camera was really difficult. It's something that we've gone. Long story very short.
Sorry to bring up.
No, not at all. Happy to talk about it. Like we've gone back and forth with that TV company as well. It's been 18 months now since that happened.
Yeah.
So in between that time, obviously you forget about things. You don't talk about it. I've never really spoke about it since doing that podcast, really, and the odd time with friends. But it's something that I do kind of still struggle to talk about it because it almost feels, and the way I was trying to explain it on camera was like, it's like you're telling somebody else's story. I feel like it's very rare that you can say, oh yeah, I nearly died once in Loch Ness. Like I never thought I'd be one of those guys that could actually say, this is what it feels like when you feel that within minutes you're going to die. Like, I never thought I'd be that person. So when you're saying it and telling the story, it's as if you're going, oh yeah, my mate, oh, you never guess what happened to my mate. But there's that realization of like, oh wow, that was actually me. I almost did not get out of that water. And the hospital said, give it another 5 minutes, and I was done. I was done. I thought my friends were dead, which was a real emotional sort of fuck up, to be honest with you. Thinking that your friends are dead was really difficult to get your head around. But yeah, as for how I am now, like I'm okay talking about it. I say try not to, but it's only because it doesn't come up that often. Still scared of water, which I found out the other day. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask if you've been in the water or you've.
Yeah, I'm still kind of scared of water. I've only been in water twice since that happened. I've obviously had the odd shower and a bath, but like actual deep water that's cold. Went surfing once with my mate Alex, who I went through that with. He's fine actually, which is kind of crazy. But I couldn't paddle out behind the break because I couldn't touch the floor. So that really it was scaring me to death. So I just sort of stayed where I could touch the floor. And then we went and did one of the things on our list that we made was to jump off a cliff into water. So we went a few weeks ago now and jumped off a cliff into water. And I stood on the end of a pretty small cliff, quote unquote. It wasn't a cliff. It was a hill, mountain, whatever you call it. I stood on the end of there, man, for ages, just like, I can't go in. I don't like it. Oh god, yeah, it's horrible. But yeah, other than that, I've not even been in the water. Sort of pretty over it, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, if you get a chance, come down.
And
we swim. My wife swims every day in the harbour down
Beautiful.
And it's super protected. And I get in. I try and get in about 3 times a week.
Nice.
Just cold water. No wetsuit, just get in. And it's kind of like nice and sheltered. There's some other places down here that are so safe to go and swim. You know, and you're not. There's no currents. There's no like. So yeah, if you can, come down and I'll take
We
you
should do
surfing.
that for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, let's do that when the book's ready.
Yeah.
We'll come and do an actual like in person. Maybe we
Yeah.
go through the book a little bit. Have to get some highlights from you. So is there a timeline to that? Just out of interest, because hopefully people listen to this and go, "I want the book."
Yeah. Well, I'm still writing. I'm writing. I've still got. It's like I've got so many people I would like to talk to, and I mean, it's called Trailhead, and what I'm doing at the moment. I'm writing as much as I can on each chapter. I've kind of got loads of stuff that I've transcribed, from trail builders to riders to photographers. I've been chatting to photographers about their emotional connection to kind of like what they see through the lens and how they kind of, what it means to them.
Brilliant.
And I kind of like just want to put it all together. I don't want to say, oh, it's going to be out then.
Yeah.
And put a load of pressure on myself, because I know that pressure, stress, it's not what it's about. It's not what it's about for me. I want this book to be a really enjoyable journey, and I don't want to hate it. I want, when I come to the point, I'm hoping it'll be be next year. That's what I'm hoping. And I was going to say, it'll be out on Mental Health Day in February, but that's unrealistic. So I want to enjoy it, and I want to chat to the right people, and schedules like the schedules are really hard, and trying to meet the right people. I'd like to come up your way, up north.
Yeah.
I've got a van now. I've got a new bike that I'm about to start building up. So I'm stoked on that. And I just want to meet the right people, lots of people, from all, not just the Bren Dogs and Ollie and whatever, and it's just everyone, and chat to different people and get the book right, make sure it's right.
Yeah.
And enjoyable, and hopefully everyone can relate to it, from, like I say, from the dad that's got a kid that he's trying to get into riding a bike, but to a bunch of mates, why they love riding with mates, to myself doing an enduro and dealing with kind of that side of things, and I've got to stem myself down a hill as fast as possible, and they're kind of having coaching at 51. You've got responsibilities and a mortgage, and it's the expectations and reality of it, and actually it's just so I'm kind of like doing a before and after of that kind of thing.
Oh,
so
cool.
when it's
Awesome.
writing about how I feel now, building up to it, doing some I'm 51, I'm not nothing to prove.
Yeah.
I'm not a great rider, but I do all right, and I've got stuff to learn, and I'm happy with, it's like surfing, I do all right, but I'm never gonna, I don't care. Really.
Yeah. That's a nice place to be as well, though. I think that's an ego thing too, isn't it? Once you can leave that at the door and you're doing it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
Totally different experience to trying to win a championship or be Kelly Slayer.
Yeah, exactly. Just grab a board and a wetsuit and go for a surf, grab a bike, put a hat on, go up the hill. Doesn't matter whether you've got full Fox kit on or a pair of jeans and a pair of old gloves, and just go in and go and rag your bike down a hill like you used to do when we were 10 years old.
Totally.
And I think that's just makes you smile, and that's what it's about. Do stuff that makes you smile. But I don't remember. We used to have this saying when we did the charity, and it was just, we're smiling. Yeah. It's all about smiling. Just always, because we'd always see the veterans smiling. And you knew stuff in their mind was mental, and they're going mad, but you could put them on a surfboard, and it was all about smiling. But
nice.
we took 3 riding once. I say this last thing, we went riding, and mountain biking through this place, and one of the funniest things, when you pull the brake and pull your mate's brake and they go off, there's this veteran, 2 veterans. One of them pulled his brake, he went off literally off the embankment, and he's just smiling. And mental health didn't matter, it was just a laugh. So
mate, perfect way to wrap up. Just smile.
Just smile. Keep on smiling.
Thank you so much. If people do want to keep up to date with what you're up to, like what's your Instagram handle and stuff?
It's Russ, at Russ Pierre.
Yep.
And I've got one called at Trailhead Project.
Perfect.
I just started that, just mountain biking. Yeah, just kind of documenting bits about my journey and other people's, and yeah. So yeah, Russ Pierre or Trailhead Project.
Awesome, dude. I'm looking forward to seeing this book come out and catching up again. But yeah, thank you so much for being so open, honest.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Nice conversation, man. Thank you. It's beautiful. This is the best part of podcasting, just sitting and riffing and having a chat with someone. It's really nice. So thank you.
Well, thank you for your podcast and keeping me entertained.
We're trying, dude. We're trying to keep the masses entertained. It's not that easy, believe it or not. It's really difficult.
Working my way back from 100 all the way through lockdown.
Oh jeez. I bet you're sick of the sound of me. I bet when I was like, "Do you want to do the podcast?" you were like, "No, mate, I'm sick of you."
I love it. I love it, and I listen to all the others that the stuff that you recommend as well, and then finding others that you kind of like, and brilliant.
It's free university, folks. Free university. Embrace it.
Thank you, Davey.
You're welcome. All right, man. Let me just end that.